Five.
4, 3, 2, 1. We should probably do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Yes. Okay, why don't we do that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Maybe once a month we should have somebody from the board sing the Star Spangled Banner.
You're
Thank you.
first.
Yes.
I don't do karaoke.
So we have 6 o'clock, we have to do the elections.
I nominate Mark to be chair again. What do y'all think?
A second.
No discussion of what he's done a great job for the past
He
year. and
has.
No changing horses in midst, none of that, just that's it.
That's it.
Anyone else? All right, I will, if nominated, I will serve.
Okay.
I can't ask for a vote on my own. Somebody has to ask. Been moved and seconded.
Let's vote.
Okay.
Delisa,
Aye.
Anna,
Yes.
Aye.
Bartlett, aye.
And
So moved.
Jeff, you were vice chair.
I'm,
Would you be
because
happy?
you were such a great chairman, I have nothing to do as vice chair, so
Oh,
I'm
please,
perfectly
don't say
happy to
that.
continue
No,
in
Maureen
that role.
sees you all the time. I'd nominate Jeff to be vice chair again, only because Maureen will remember if we're there for 2 years. She won't have any problems. Does anyone else want it, or is it okay for Jeff? You're,
If Jeff wants to do it another year,
It's
so
fine.
be it.
okay.
I second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. You want to do clerk again? Because she still has your stamp, right?
I do.
I guess there's some liability involved, but
What- I don't want to leave Anna out. Do you want to do it? No.
No, I mean, you've heard me say before, I think everyone should be in different leadership roles, so I've already had all three.
All right, well, let's,
That's fun.
all right.
all right, I'll make a motion that we have Bartlett as clerk again.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? You can't.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. What else we got? That's it?
Yep.
I make Maren can still be, what are you anyway? Regional planner?
Goddess of
guru,
planning.
Goddess of planning, yes, we'll leave that one going. Do we have any appointments for the boards, or are we still good? You're still doing Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah.
Have we got you on there yet as a member yet, or what's the hang up with that one?
So I understand that Matthew needs to be able to remove himself as the appointee from
I thought he already-
administrator and become the appointee from the housing
Housing
board.
Trust, I thought he did, he hasn't done that yet?
No, he has not done that
We'll
yet.
get it done by the 17th.
And then I think there's some confusion as to whether or not that truly is an appointed job or whether it needs to be done before the select board, because the select board.
Dolly, didn't you already go before the select board on it?
No.
All right, can we follow up on that, because,
Right, the last response that I saw, they were gonna go through the,
Sorry, I'll speak louder.
they were gonna go do it at the regular appointment times when they have appointments
Okay.
for all the other boards and committees, that they'll just do
okay.
this at the same time.
What about anything else?
I'll stay on MPIC
Okay.
unless somebody else wants
That's a
it.
thankless one. What else, what else is there?
I'm Transportation Advisory, and I'd be happy to continue.
Okay, what about, you're still muddling with TDR? Want to stay muddling with that?
Sure, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
let's help him out so he's not muddling.
Well, no, he's plodding forward slowly, like being in the mud, it's just,
There you go.
Yeah, I'm working with this group.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
And then the last one is the Community Preservation Committee. I believe Bartlett is,
Actually, I'm the.
I'm
You're the,
sorry.
I think you're the appointment.
Yeah, so I'll stay on
Right.
CPC.
thank
All
you.
right. God, it was so agreeable today. Because it's nice out.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
sun is shining.
If it was raining, it would be
Birds
crazy.
are singing.
That's what it is, okay. What else? Anything else, Myron, that we need to deal with before we get into board business? We can start board business now. Board member input, anybody? And we got anything?
I think so.
Oh,
Okay?
I circulated a letter about having the planning board consulted on the 12 Robinson Road decision. This may very well be the very first project accomplished under form-based code. And I know that we would get any development proposal before the board, but as they are disposing of it, I think we should be consulted.
Do you want to weigh in on that one?
Well, I think it has to do with jurisdiction and authority, right? I mean, the select board has the authority because it's a town-owned property.
They definitely have, there's no doubt they have authority.
Maybe the authority to sell it.
Yeah, but they also have the responsibility to consult with the various groups that are interested. And there's a lot of groups. There's the master plan implementation, there's the planning board, there's this, there's that. And I'm not, has nothing to do with any of the proposals. It's just a matter of a process where we bring the select board in on certain, decisions that we're making. And it just seems to me that if they're gathering, the only input they gathered was from the Historical Commission, which has a very limited, look at. And that's all. I mean, I don't think there's any formal role, but I just think that there should be
So the-
some reach out to us saying, what do you think? Do you have any comments?
Why don't we send a letter to the select board that we would like to be
Okay.
included when they try to decide what they
Yeah.
want to do
So-
with the disposition of it?
Can we just adapt the letter that,
Yeah, Jeff has sent a letter on his own behalf. Do you want one
I
on
think
the
from the
board's
planning board,
behalf?
we should at least be consulted on it,
Well, so I was actually at the meeting on Monday evening as a resident, and so I provided my comments as a resident, but
and I provided my comments as a resident. Yeah.
and so from that standpoint, I think that's kind of appropriate when select board members come here and they provide their input. So that's the way I was looking at it. Just in terms of the way I like to do things, more collaboratively, I definitely think that for any projects that we do, we should be working together, boards and committees, et cetera. So overall, I like the idea, and it's something that I think would be great.
It's
I
a
don't know
weird
if it-
situation.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get any pushback, but
Yeah.
it's worth asking.
Because it's a weird situation, because normally a developer would purchase a property when we have nothing to do with that. And in this case, the town is directing things a little more than usual. So, that's all.
Okay, well, we can at least ask them to be included in it, especially where we know that the bank stuff is coming down the pike too, so we should be looking at all of it at the same
Well,
time.
they're looking to make that decision fairly quickly at their next select
next
board
meeting?
meeting.
Okay, so maybe we can weigh in on it. Any other board member updates? I have one. I got a phone call today about Hager Homestead. We've been watching them progress with it. Well, they've run into problems with the house. The structural integrity of the house, it's a question. So,
More than the foundation.
well, the foundation, it's crumbling, and they don't know if they can actually save the house. So they want to come before us with, talk about what they can potentially do to save the house.
Well, that's one of those projects where the historical commission needs to be advised immediately.
They've been made aware of it, but they're probably going to want to talk to us about what can be done to try to save the house, and whether they're not even sure. It's so, I guess the sills are so far gone, and the foundations, as you can see, you can see it crumbling as they're working out there, but, so, they're going to probably come before us, I think, in our next meeting. Did Bruce say he was going to get in touch with you to try to be on the agenda for June?
Yeah, that's,
Okay, yeah, just talk about, one of the things they want to talk about is how much it's going to cost to fix it, so.
It looks like they've had soil issues It looks like they're using helical pier anchors or something for the main, I mean, it was probably a wetland at some
Yeah.
point, and anyway, so that may not be the only problems they've had.
They have,
However,
so just be aware that they're probably gonna come before us to wanna talk about what can be done to save the house. I told them I thought it was critical to do what they could to save the house. That was kind of the cornerstone of the whole thing.
Yep.
Rather than try to reproduce it and build a new one. I said, no, you gotta do what you can, and if money's an issue, we need to talk about it, but, you can always, we can send a man in the moon, we can fix a 200-year-old house.
Sills is not an overwhelming problem.
No, so anyway, so we'll probably be seeing them next month. Anything else? Anybody else? Minutes from May 5th? Anybody have any issues with minutes from May 5th?
I think I sent them to
Yeah, no, they were
Didn't.
posted.
Oh, I didn't see them. They were posted?
They were not.
Oh,
were
yeah,
not
okay.
posted.
you.
Well, you're on here. I'm just doing what I'm
Yeah.
told.
I was hopeful, but
All right, so
Lucia
we're gonna-
is being Janet, and so.
Okay, so we're gonna hold off on the minutes from May 5th? Okay. All right, that's it. Couple minutes more. Anything else? Anything else?
I'll share that I told you a little while ago that the HUD had put out the new numbers for affordable housing
Like the
income levels. But then today I got some information on what that relates to regarding rents. So let me find the right page. So- Maybe. Come on. 60, 80. So 80% AMI for a two-bedroom unit. The maximum rent is $2,500 a month. And then for the 30% AMI, which is the very deeply affordable,
600?
that's for a two-bedroom unit, 946. For a one-bedroom, 788.
Oh, it has gone up quite a bit.
Studio, 736, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the income, average income really indexed up this year and last as well.
Okay. Great.
So I had a question about the DHCD housing inventory. Why haven't they tied it to the latest census yet?
That's
It's
a lot-
been like 2 years.
Right, it has a lot to do with the state's not yet comfortable with the details of how those numbers were all collected. They're doing an extra review of it this
Okay.
year. And then when one of the layers of information is supposed to come out in the fall, so when that comes out, then they'll be updating
Okay.
it for that.
Okay. All right, so we have 6:15. Continued public hearing and planning board vote, the shared residential driveway for 9 Air Road, single access for lots 7, 9, 11, and 13. Oh, it's already standing up, wow. This 6 o'clock, this early stuff is good, huh?
Yeah, it is. Greg Roy, Dillis and Roy, thanks for your time this evening. We met with the board, I think, on the 6th or 7th of April, and subsequent to that, we revised the plan to clean up the miscellaneous engineering-related issues on the plan. I think the plan was dated April 8th. And subsequent to that, I think it was on about the 21st or 22nd, Green did issue a new matrix with no outstanding engineering-related items. There are several conditions, say 5 or 6, that they are leaving up to the discretion of the board, conditions and the like. So we believe that things have been advanced to a point where All of the outstanding items are appropriate for conditions. I did want to update the board. One of the maybe more significant issues that was outstanding last time was the planting on the top of the slope. That has been accomplished. That's been done in the last few weeks, so that is no longer outstanding. I wanted to be brief, so I'm happy to take any questions.
The board have any questions?
And I can go over the outstanding items if you'd like, or whatever you.
You want to go over the outstanding issues we have to decide on quickly? Yeah, why don't you do that?
Sure. Number 21, related, as I mentioned, related to the vegetated buffer at the top of the slope, so that's been resolved. Items 25 through 26 relate to the fact that we need to apply for and obtain a Mass DOT access permit, and that is pending, ongoing with Mass DOT, so we have no issues accepting a condition that a Mass DOT permit, access permit is required. Number 29 and 29A relate to the geotechnical slope stability report. We just have nothing more to add on that. The slopes are vegetating nicely, if that's a word. There's good green growth on those. We haven't had any issues with erosion, so we believe that has been resolved. Items 31 through 32 relate to the fire department needing to review the plan. We did send this plan to the fire department for review relating to the fire turnaround on the circle that we're proposing. We just haven't heard back from them yet, so we're happy to accept the condition if the board deems it appropriate, that clearly the fire department will have to review and approve prior to building permits. And lastly, 43 relates to the fact that we will be establishing a homeowners association, so the suggestion was that your board issue that as a condition of approval, that the HOA be established as a condition of the approval. And that's it.
For the sewer.
It'll be for maintenance, so that it'll be like plowing the common driveway, also for the drainage, operation, maintenance, those kind of things.
Anyone have any questions? Can I, before we open it, where are you at with the board of, the select board?
So, I'm not sure.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Luke William, Cheryl Gould for the applicant. Joe Layden reported to me and reported to the board in writing that they went out, they did a sidewalk. Joe Layden went out and did a sidewalk, presented his recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that everything is fine. The selectmen said they are happy with everything the way that it is, but they wanted to postpone the sign-off on the permit till the next meeting, just to make sure the plantings and the grass take root and grow.
So they agreed to it but haven't signed off on it.
That's correct.
I think that's the letter that we got, correct, Maren? Didn't we get it somewhere?
Well, we got
We got Joe's letter, but we never
Joe's
got
recommendation.
recommendation, but not a sign off from the
This
city.
is in regard to the soil removal permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Gravel
Yes.
permit.
I think it's soil removal, excuse me.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, that's
No,
what they
it's
call it.
Soil
gravel.
removal.
Yeah.
That's a lot of soil.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions, or?
So I guess I would like to say that I hear what the applicant is saying. However, the letter from Mr. Layden actually says that more work needs to be done to stabilize the slopes, and that was as of May 6th, I believe. So it sounds like there is probably a little bit more work that needs to be done there to actually secure it. And then with respect to what is in our draft decision, I think the information that is written in there about the geotechnical engineer, I want to just read it. It says, "The geotechnical engineering report was prepared by Neshoba Engineering Associates and submitted to the planning board relative to a question raised by the planning board regarding the stability of the existing side slopes on the property. It says no additional review of the geotechnical report has occurred. So the discussion that I recall having was that I raised this as a question as to whether or not Green International could review it. Green International, I thought they said that they don't have anybody on staff who is a geotechnical engineer. So my question is, if they don't have a geotechnical engineer on their staff who can review this, then why would they be okay, or why would we be okay accepting a report that wasn't created by a geotechnical engineer, but a civil engineer? So it comes down to the fact that I've heard it from members on this board that we need to rely on Green International to do our peer reviews. And if they are requesting a recommendation from us to have a geotechnical engineer, I don't understand what our hesitation is to make that request. And then the request to actually get somebody brought us to the report from the Neshoba Engineering Associates, and the engineer who created that report is not a geotechnical engineer. So,
Going around in circles.
we're going around in circles, right. So my question is are we going to ask them to get a geotechnical engineer to review it, because that's what our peer review organization has recommended to us?
I want to make a distinction about what a geotechnical engineer is. And I think it's something we've thrown around. They're typically engaged when you're investigating subsoil conditions relative to placement of foundations of new buildings. And I think what may have happened in the flurry of when there were trucks moving around or anything, that term was brought to bear when it really isn't appropriate. I think any civil engineer could look at those slopes and look at the composition of those slopes, of the soils, and make a determination. So while it is a circle, because Green was responding to our request, which may have been not, overly precise. And that's just the way, and that's based on my experience. So
So do you think we don't need a geotech?
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
not in this case.
What do you think, Mark? I mean, I feel like this is kind of over my head in
Right.
terms of,
Okay.
what kind of engineer and should be required. So I'm looking to the
Well-
two of you.
After listening to Jeff, I kind of agree with Jeff. We're not doing anything subsurface. We wanted to make sure that when they put the slopes in, that they were gonna stabilize and
Right.
weren't gonna slide out. I think the confusion came in when that word was thrown in there, and none of us knew what it was, and Green really doesn't know how to respond to it, because it's not a structure. So it,
What happens if, let's say, in 5 years, the slopes do erode and slide down into people's houses? Oh, we're not liable for anything, right?
we don't.
I think you can look at the building next door, which has even a higher slope. The same kind of excavation was made for that office warehouse building. I don't know. I think to rely on a civil engineer who knows something about soils, and there's a ratio of, rise to run that isn't exceeded in that site. We can do whatever we want with the geotech, but I don't think a geotech is called for in this case. Because, for instance, at the Hager Homestead, if you look to the right of the existing building, there's a lot of things sticking out of the ground, and they probably had a geotech do a soil investigation which determined that there's not bearing soil for the building. They did a specialized, foundation to support the building, and that's how you use geotech. So,
Not for a landscape or a slope. Are they within our 3-to-1 slope? Did we ever ascertain that?
The slope on the right is 3-to-1.
Okay.
The back slope and the left slope are 2-to-1. But they were built per plan.
But isn't our bylaw, it has to be 3-to-1?
I don't know off the top of
No,
my
I
head.
thought
but
we had we don't have a slope.
I think it was 2-to-1. I think we eased the right slope just because it was really close to the abutting
I
property.
thought we thought we had something.
And we pulled it
2-to-1
back.
is fine.
Okay, all right. Bylaw, what do you wanna
Well,
weigh?
the question to me is, that particular type of soil that's underlying, what is the natural angle of repose if you just piled that stuff up? What kind of an angle would you get?
Like 60 degrees. I mean, it's a lot steeper. It's really coarse gravel and sand. So if you think of a rock pile,
Yeah.
right, it's a pretty good,
So the
we've-
2-to-1 is a lot
yeah,
more spread out than
Yeah.
that 60 degrees.
that's right.
Another example that the planning board dealt with was the point. So the entire slope that abuts Westford was excavated to the nth possible degree, right up to the stone wall at the edge of that thing. And it is so steep, you can't even walk on it. I mean, you can't walk across it, you'll sort of tumble down. And it's a much higher slope. And yet, I don't know if you looked into geotech or whatever for, yeah, so
But
anyway.
the only difference of that is they did stabilize it with stone. It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in this case, they're doing it with
Gravel.
grass. No, they're doing
grass,
grass,
yeah.
grass, which is
Okay.
established pretty well on the 3-to-1 part. Anyway, so that's my comment.
So my feeling is that the board doesn't really think, most of the board doesn't think that getting a geotech consultant is really an issue here. It's something that probably should have been vetted out a long time ago, that we really didn't know what we were asking for in that. We've gotten satisfied with the slope and everything by engineering and seeing it actually vegetated, and like you said, we've gone through the rainy season, we haven't had mudslides, it doesn't,
Right, the report that was provided by Neshoba Engineering Associates is stamped.
so I
But
guess,
that goes back to the fact that they are not geotechnical engineers, so I
But,
will
and
just
and I
point that
guess
out.
my point, yeah, no, I agree, that's absolutely right. We asked for geotech, I should have focused on that when it came up.
okay,
Okay,
all right.
so I hear what everybody's saying,
Mhm.
okay? So I don't think that it's appropriate to put that in the decision
Okay,
as stated.
okay. Any other concerns?
So there was a late request from the BIPAC about providing a sidewalk. And this is a tough one because there's no sidewalk in that entire section of road. Doesn't mean there may not be one in the future. It ends at Sanderson, is that Sanderson Road at the light? Whatever that, Oak Hill Road, or whatever the light is, it ends there. And a sidewalk at this point, at that property, would be discontinuous with any other sidewalk. And it's possible that if a sidewalk was ever built, it might be on the other side of the road. I don't know. So this is a tough one because I think that road is awful. It's awful with traffic. It's crazy. It's dangerous for anyone who would have to be walking on it. But yet, that particular section would have no utility.
Plus, it's kind of late to be asking.
Well, I agree, and we probably
these
should
are
have.
things that need to be brought up a lot sooner, or we need to be thinking about.
You know, I was wondering if a sort of an intermediate thing would be that no construction be done that would preclude a sidewalk being, and I don't know what that would be. I mean, you have some drainage structures, but.
All those are outside of the right-of-way, though.
Those are
Yeah,
outside the right-of-way. So within the right-of-way is within the right-of-way, which presumably would be available for a sidewalk.
It's like
So,
15 feet, right?
Yeah.
You have plenty
Yeah,
of
it's
space.
pretty,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
pretty
could
good
build a
shoulder.
sidewalk so the kids can play hopscotch, but that's about all it's gonna do. You can't
So
connect it.
I guess I would say, in general, the people who are looking out for this are doing us a favor by pointing out this kind of forward thinking. In this particular case, I'm not sure, I think it's going to be it would have to be part of a section, a whole road section wide. And I talked to my Mark about this. That road is terrible with traffic. And how do we get the state engaged to, looking at these issues in a holistic way, not on a parcel by parcel basis?
Well, that's something that we had discussed when I was on the Transportation Advisory Council, that had been brought up, because the thought was to link up Air and Harvard to
Right.
Littleton. Air Road is the obvious
Right.
choice, right? And like you said, I mean, I work on that road.
Yeah.
It's awful. But because it's state, you can't there's not much the town can do, was my understanding. I mean, it's not swept on a regular basis, so you really can't ride bikes, it's potholed.
There's
it's-
erosion.
Yeah, I mean, so is that correct, that given that it's a state road, we as a town cannot do
Yeah,
anything?
within the right-of-way, it's limited.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't go to the state, but,
Well, I think
Yeah.
the town should work toward going to
Yeah.
the state. The traffic on that road is.
maybe that's something as part of the Transportation Advisory Council, maybe they know more about it since I was on there. Because that was considered a really important linkage between those three towns.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can ask, but we're probably not gonna get very far with that one. Anything else?
Jeff Sizemore Bartlett has something too.
Right. I have a question about the homeowners association. Is there going to be any representation from the developer on that, or is there going to be any mechanism to enforce it if, say, the drainage, I mean, I'm assuming that they'll arrange for snow plowing, but the drainage, if that gets clogged, is there a way to, is there any liability for them? Is there any way to enforce those rules?
It's a good question. It's more of a legal question than everything.
For the most part, the homeowners association requires it. And if you put something in your decision about the homeowners association maintaining those structures, then that would be your enforcement mechanism. There's usually a collection mechanism, and there's liens on the property preventing any resale until those are satisfied. So yes, the answer is
There
yes.
is, okay.
But I don't think he's asking that, he's not asking about the homeowners, he's asking what repercussions the homeowner can make if there's an issue with the design and the build-out, or what's going on.
That's a related question.
Yeah. How do they go after the builder? If there's an issue.
That's what the engineers in green are for. I mean, that's being represented by engineering, that those structures are supposed to work and will work, provided they're kept maintained. So to direct my answer to Mr. Harvey's question, it's the maintenance that would cause a failure over time, more likely than a defect in the design of the structure. If there's an immediate defect in the design of the structure, that's the engineering and the contractors.
Okay.
But as long as it's built to
Are you
spec, it should.
satisfied with that?
Well, are those conditions in our,
They're gonna be in your covenant.
in the covenant? I mean, can we have a covenant that spells that out, about the homeowners maintaining that?
The homeowners association document will reference the special permit decision, which is also a matter of record. And so there is a nexus for every subsequent homeowner and their attorney to see it, and deal with it, and abide by it, yes.
Okay.
So there are two waivers that were requested through the peer review process. And so the first one that's identified is the The applicant requests the planning board approve a waiver from the requirement on the shared residential driveway design requirements for a turnaround with a 75-foot minimum turning radius. And so if we were talking earlier about what I heard Mr. Roy say is that we haven't heard back from the fire department yet. So if we haven't heard back from the fire department yet, why would we issue a waiver to it?
This goes back to our, I don't know if I want to call it an error, but in our shared residential development bylaw, we have radius instead of diameter. So the size of the turnaround would have to be twice as big
It's
as.
enormous, it's really big.
Yeah, so the design is that the fire department provides a template, and that's the template they use to design.
Right. By the way, we use the Littleton ladder truck on all surrounding towns too, from a mutual aid standpoint, because it's
Well,
the
my
biggest
question
And then
truck.
what happens at the building permit application stage is the fire department reviews everything at that point. And if the fire department doesn't sign up on the building permit for safety reasons, then they don't get a building permit.
So
So it's an
should the
error, huh?
waiver read,
It seems like it should be a,
to conform with the Littleton Fire Department requirements?
Yeah,
Rather than a specific number?
I think the condition, you should condition it conditional upon approval from the fire department.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what it should be.
Turnaround radius of the
Yeah,
town.
and we're willing to accept that. In the event they need it changed, we'd have to, it's sort of on our risk, we'll have to come back and modify the permit.
Yeah. And the idea that there's a ladder truck responding to a fire there?
Well, it's the biggest piece of equipment, so if
I
it
know.
can get in, I know, but if you.
Yeah, we just use the biggest piece of apparatus to do the turning movement, so that we know that ambulances and more common
Okay.
things can make it around.
All right, so then the second waiver is on item number 3. Mara, do you happen to have that peer review list handy?
I can read it if you'd like.
We're looking for item,
Why don't you, it's quicker, why don't you just
Sure.
read it?
Green's initial comment was, per the special permit submission requirements, exterior lighting plan, architectural plans, landscaping plan, signage plan, and traffic impact assessment should be submitted. We defer to the board whether these are required for this project. And, yeah, we did submit landscaping information. There is signage on the plan, but we are asking, we're not proposing any exterior lighting other than what would be mounted to the exterior of the buildings, such as door lights and things like that.
No street lights on the end of the roads?
Correct. And we're asking you to waive the submittal of architectural plans and a traffic impact assessment,
It's 4 lots.
because it's full lots.
It's 4 lots.
So the reason why I brought it up is because it wasn't in the considered this draft decision, so we need to make sure that we identify it as something that we're intentionally waiving.
Okay. Okay.
And then, this was, I think, Maureen's recommendation. So where in here do we have anything about the abutter screening at the top of the slope as a condition? I just don't remember seeing.
That was in the soil removal permit.
Okay.
Yeah. It's my understanding, it's been done.
And it's installed, right? It's been installed.
Okay.
There may be Walmart plants, but they're up there.
right, so either,
It's a lot more than I would have expected.
Yeah.
yeah, so either bottom of page 2 or top of page 3 on the decision, draft decision.
Gonna be in water too. So, yeah. I think Joe weighed in on that it had been done, so.
Okay. All right.
Okay, anything else?
I have one question that is related to the site, that I was always curious about. What was that like doorway in the side of the slope? You know that concrete structure that?
It's a bunker.
No, it's not there anymore.
It's a bunker.
No one.
I don't know what it was.
It was pretty
I remember
interesting
seeing
to drive
it though.
by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Building inspector.
Okay.
I mean, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
it was an opening to a wellhead.
Okay.
That's all it
Okay.
was. So at one time it
Yes.
was farm area.
Okay.
And it was an opening to a wellhead.
Okay. Oh, that's much less interesting than.
No burial crypt with Revolutionary War people in it, nothing, none of that good stuff. Anyway. Anna, anything else?
Well, so under items number 21, 25, and 26, I think those are items that should be submitted in as conditions. So 21 we just talked about, so then 25,
We agree. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Anybody else? Do you want to close the hearing and vote this?
That's up to you. I think there might be some comments.
Comments from the neighbor? Does anyone have anything? How did you know? Yes, sir. Name, please, for Myron.
Jerry Cavallo, 8 Uplands Road. I speak on part of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I want to talk sidewalks, should
All right.
I? Mark,
Go ahead.
want me to go over them?
Sure.
So ideally, when somebody puts in a development, they would come to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee and say, hey, I'm putting in a development on a real busy road, and there is no way for people to get in and out of it, and I want to build a sidewalk to nowhere, but if we do, would the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee be able to connect it somewhere? And that's how we would help. But for some reason, this is not considered to be a development. It's 4 houses, but somehow we put them in with 2 driveways. They're just houses. But let's for a moment think about these as these homes. People are really going to live in these things, so let's call them homes, not houses. And people are going to have kids, and there's no way to get out of that place without driving your car. What if they want to take their kids for a walk or something? And DCS would arrest them if they walk their kids on that street. You already mentioned that, so we know how busy that road is. So, and it's also the unusual shape of this, is there's no access out the back either. Like, down the road further, the one next to the high school, the Weber development, the consideration was to put a path around the back to get to the high school so they could cross at that crossing area. But that's what we want to do with this as well, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. So, what our vision is a walkway that connects from New Estate Road, which we, town at great expense, put in a sidewalk that goes all the way around New Estate Road. And what we have are properties along that route that a sidewalk can easily go in on. We have Corporate Field, which the town owns, and we could get a sidewalk in there. Then we have the Highway Department, and we have the Water and Electric Department, and those people are isolated as well. I'm sure they would support a sidewalk across there. And then the next thing is the industrial park. People work there. Wouldn't it be nice if they could get out and go for a walk as well? And then we come to the property that's being developed. And then further down, we have Indian Hill, which is going to be turned over because they're building a new place up in Groton. So that will probably come before the planning board for something. We could probably get a sidewalk in there. And then is this a short way from there? Oh, the parking lot going in at the group home. We're a little late for that, but I'm sure they would appreciate a sidewalk as well, so their kids don't have to cross the road. And what we want to get to is that beautiful crosswalk they put in front of the high school. It's probably the safest place to cross 2A that I've ever seen because it's got good line of sight from either direction. It has a little button you can push. So that's our vision, is to get that connected to where the crosswalk is. And from the crosswalk, you can get all the way to the common, the newly developed common that we're going to have, and people can actually walk and go shopping or do something. So there's a lot of benefit, and it was mentioned the other side of Route 2A. It's all wetland on the other side of 2A. You'll never get a sidewalk in there. So this is our only hope along this side, and it actually is very hopeful because there's so much land there that's town-owned, or we vote for the commissioners of those organizations. So what I would like to offer, and I know there's no requirement to put in a sidewalk there. Our failure, there is no requirement for it. Maybe if it was actually a development instead of a special permit to get a couple of houses in on a busy road, we'd have more leeway. But I'm talking up here mainly to talk to the developers and say, hey, if you put a sidewalk in there, these are homes, it'll probably increase the value of these homes, and you can say, hey, we're putting in this sidewalk to nowhere, but it's going to be connected. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee said this is a goal of theirs to get these connected, and maybe that would be a selling price for these. Another thing that goes into favor is, people used to be a bedroom community. You just get in your car and you go to the train station, you drive into Boston. But now a lot of people are working from home, and what you want is a little place to take a break, go for a walk. You see it every day now, people walking around. This is something that people, I think, would be looking for in a home. And so the bottom line is, we really think it would improve the desirability and the sale of these houses for the people who are going to live in them. And that's who we're really speaking to here, is the people who are going to live in them. And BPAC is committed to creating the connections. It's not going to be a sidewalk to nowhere forever. We would really like to make those connections, because it's our purpose to connect things like New Estate Road to somewhere else, so people can get places rather than have to drive a car. So that's the opinion of BPAC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
I
sure.
really want to thank you for sharing that. It's so rare that we get input from other committees and boards, so thank you for taking the time, really.
And what's been lacking is that vision that you laid out, because it's not obvious when you're driving down that stretch. I mean, it does take a vision that has to be put about, people can react to, and thank you for coming. So,
You're welcome. Thank you.
We do have space in the front. I mean, unfortunately, the state controls it, but maybe at some later date, we can get sidewalks out there.
Well, what about, you mentioned though, a lot of that property is town-owned.
No,
Of course, we
no,
have to get
it's
the money
the
somewhere.
right, it's the right of.
Oh, it's still the right of way.
Oh, you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about in
like
front of.
Corporate Field and
Yeah, and in front of LEL.
Well, in the old days, we used to have a sidewalk fund. We used to
Right.
have developers to, we stopped doing that. Maybe we should think about
Yeah,
reenacting it, and as we.
I mean, especially now, as he mentioned, more people are working from home, and that's going to continue. So,
Anyone else in the audience have something to say about this? How does the board want to handle this? We want to take a vote? Do we want to close the hearing, take a vote? Obviously, we can't do anything till the select board signs off on the gravel permit, but we can vote subject to that. We can vote however the board wants to deal with this.
I move we close the hearing.
I second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, do you want to vote it? Do you want to vote it conditionally upon the select board signing off on the gravel? Because they can't really do anything until the soil removal permits, excuse me, is taken care of. And we all right with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I am.
Someone want to make a motion to approve the shared residential driveway?
I move that the planning board vote to approve the shared residential driveway special permit with conditions as outlined in the draft decision, updated as we've discussed in this hearing.
And subject to the select board.
That's a
What are the
condition.
conditions?
Okay. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. It's been
Thank
a
you.
long time, thank you.
Appreciate it. At the risk of belaboring it, there is an A&R plan that we submitted as well. Because we reconfigured the lots when we did the common driveway so that we could petition the houses around the cul-de-sac, so,
Right, and that's on the agenda as well.
right. So we just we kept kicking that can down the road just until we figured it didn't make much sense to sign the A&R plan until
Do you want to?
Okay.
you closed the special permit.
Anyone wants to look at it?
Do you want to look? All right, well, let's take a quick peek at it, see if you've done anything else.
So full lots, just different configuration.
Can you tell us what we changed, so we don't have to go looking?
Well, really just reposition the lot lines so that we could get the houses configured around the, so Honestly, I can't really remember what I changed. So there's a big skew in between lots 1 and 2, and that's so that we can position those houses a little bit better. That's the biggest change, I think. There's still, the backland lot is still Lot 3. That was the same as before. So we just, actually, you can see the old lot lines on there, I think.
Yeah, and you moved
Right.
the lot 4,
Right.
you adjusted so that it had 150-foot frontage.
So yes, right. The frontages are, may have been tweaked a little bit, but they're by and large the same. Just the way the angles and distances on the geometry on the lots interior are just a little bit different.
The right-of-way on the abutment, why doesn't it keep going through this? We've got it stopped right at the lot line.
I think that was the old shared driveway. So that was, that was actually right away across the abutting property for the purpose of this, for the old house.
Oh, for the old house,
Right.
that was there, okay.
Yeah, so now it won't be.
The old house isn't there anymore, okay? Sure. All right. Actually, we should probably vote at this, make a, yeah, start of that once I signed it. We need someone want to make a motion to approve the A&R as amended, that's before us right now?
I move to approve the A&R at 9 Arrow Road as amended.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, now you can sign it legally. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so we have continued public hearing.
No, we got the 6:30
6:30.
discussion, request to amend.
Oh, yeah,
Village.
Weber Village, yes. Request to amend special permit. Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Jennifer, I hope your car's okay.
It's,
Is he taking this with him?
Yeah.
We should charge more for same-day service. Want this?
And you'll, yeah, the date.
Sure, yeah. Today's date.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Board members, Weber Village. We were here a month ago, just a quick reminder, Weber Village, 17 units. 2 of those are affordable units. The 15 market rate units have already been sold. The 2 affordable units have been completed. They are ready to be put into an affordable housing lottery. Just a quick reminder, this project was permitted under an old set of bylaws from 2017, and that required us to have design elements so someone could age in place. So the zero entry doorways, the essentially single floor living. There were a lot of discussions and concessions made going through that process. But one of the big ones is that old 2017 bylaws did not require a deed restriction. And there was an acknowledgement by the board at that time that without a deed restriction, these are not all going to go to elderly citizens. And there was a concession made for that, which was a cash payment by the developer of $45,000, $3,000 for each market rate unit. We're at the point now where we want to have the affordable housing lottery. There are folks in town, there are seniors in town who would love to get into these units, but with the condition 36 of our special permit, which says that you have to market exclusively to one person over 55, DHCD will not accept it. This is in, vagrant violation of their regulations. I mean, their affordable fair housing marketing guidelines say you have to have a marketing plan that does not discriminate against all of the protected classes, including sex, religion, and age. So they will not accept it. This is also the way the condition is written, it violates the town bylaws, because The town definition of an affordable unit says it has to comply with the DHCD regs and be considered or eligible for the subsidized housing inventory. So with an age restriction, we can't have it qualify for your count. Last time we were here, the chair and the board made it very clear that they were unhappy with the number of elderly residents who ended up in the development, and we understand that. But we are prohibited by statute from denying a sale to any person because of their age, because they are not old enough to live here. We did put in the marketing materials that these were designed for elderly in mind, but it's not age restricted, which is what was required under the bylaws, and it's really the extent of what we could do. I understand, we're here because you're frustrated, we're frustrated. The board has asked for another monetary contribution by the developer, and they believe they have given on this project. They have given money, they have built tennis courts, they have built walking paths. Our friends from the Bicycle Trail Committee just mentioned, we have made a trail to connect this to the high school so you can get out and walk through the back of the property. There was a lot given here, and we have asked if there were other alternatives, other requests by the board. No one's been able to come up with something, and so we're at a standstill here. I respectfully request that the board delete this condition so the units can be put into a affordable lottery so we can get people into them. Right now we have 2 beautiful units that have been sitting vacant for months, and they'll continue to sit vacant because a lottery takes time.
Okay. First of all, this was done in 2019, not 17, okay? And we talked about the $3,000. The $3,000 was a suggestion by Judy Barrett to both you and the people and the developer, Roger Kennard, who built the others over 55, because you didn't offer any amenities to seniors. That was it wasn't out of the goodness of your heart, it was because they got nothing. They got a gazebo, their open space was illusionary. No, tennis courts was, no, it wasn't for
Tennis courts was a
seniors.
significant financial investment.
Wasn't for seniors. So it was decided on both of the senior residential developments, yours and Mr. Kennard's, that you all kick in $3,000 to go to the Affordable Housing Trust. That's what it was done. These were designed as senior units, okay? Senior. They were going to be marketed exclusively to seniors for 4 to 6 months. It's in our discussion, it's in our decision. The issue is not with the 2 units that are left, it's with the fact that you never market them to seniors. So Littleton senior residents did not get an opportunity to have a chance to buy these. These were sold very quickly to other entities that were not seniors in the town of Littleton. And that's not in the spirit of what that bylaw was designed to do. So now we're at a crossroad of what to do to make it amicable to you and to the seniors that didn't get a shot at buying these units. And that's why we're at loggerheads, because we can't come up with a solution, or we haven't yet come up with a solution that satisfies the members of the board that voted this for 3 years ago, and something that gives the seniors something that they got, because the other one was age restricted, and he had no problem selling 19 units. Nobody took them, no one was taking a court or anything else. They had the age restriction, they all went to seniors over 55. You asked for a condition of approval that you would market it to seniors for 6 months exclusively, and that's how we got past that, and that's how you got 4 out of 4 votes. You've demonstrated to us, and I believe you can weigh in on this, that you never actually did market it to seniors. You put it on Facebook for one posting on Facebook. It's not marketing it to seniors. And that's where the issue comes with the board, because we don't think you were genuine in how you approached marketing it to seniors. Judy Barrett talked about putting this up talked about the fact that it was beneficial to seniors. That's her letter to us to support you. Talked about seniors, talked about the fact that it was age-in-place seniors in Littleton that would benefit from it. It was all discussed. We talked about it in our minutes. Our minutes are here if you want to go back through them. We talked about seniors, and it didn't go to seniors. By accident, it went to 7 families that happened to have a senior in there. It wasn't actively marketed. And that's where I have this disjoining of it. What's fair to the seniors that never had an opportunity to buy a place and to stay in age and place in Littleton? That's, to me, that's where it is in a nutshell. I'm going to open up to the rest of the board to see what
Just
they think.
one comment on that. A number of those units did sell very quickly, and a number of them were on the market for over a year. Every listing did say that they were designed for seniors in mind.
They were not marketed to seniors.
Seniors had an opportunity, just as everyone else did, to buy.
Okay, that's your opinion. But anyway, I want to listen to the rest of the board, and then we'll figure out, hopefully we'll come to some sort of solution. Anyone have anything to weigh in, or you? Nothing?
Well, I read the original decision to permit it, and it's titled Senior Residential Development Permit. So I think, at least to that extent, it was clearly intended for seniors. Whether the bylaw specified it could be only seniors or not, that I don't know, but the agreement to market to seniors is in there, and the title of the permit is Senior Residential Development.
And if you'd like, I'm happy to respond to that. I mean, they were and they are designed for seniors. If you look at the bylaws, and I do reference 2017 because that was the date of the bylaws, and I do have those. So they're designed to support aging in the community. And yes, I get that you would like to have more seniors there, but they're also designed so if someone buys in and they are not 55 yet, you can stay there. You don't have to leave because you're in a 2-story big home that you can't age in. I mean, the intent of these old bylaws, which are no longer the current bylaws, but they were to use.
This bylaw is still in effect.
They've been amended.
No,
No. Yeah, it's been amended a couple
Yeah.
times.
yeah, we amended to try to take out the issues that were.
Right, and one of the issues was, these ones were not deed restricted, they don't have to be, and that's where you get in, a developer or someone, or broker trying to sell them gets into, between a rock and a hard place, because you're not allowed to say no to someone because they're not a senior. I mean, even if you say, we only want, you can't even say we only want seniors.
It is, it's a senior residential
But
development, that's what we
But you
wanted.
can only do it by statute if it's an age-restricted
And that's what
development.
we wanted to do, that was
But
what
it's
the
not.
stuff, it was supposed to be.
But
And you
that
are-
was the distinction between this and
In all
Kennard.
fairness, I mean, I was in the audience during all of this, and I fought really hard to get these age restricted.
Right.
Which is what we did with Kennard's.
Right.
So I think, I get what you're saying. I mean, you
The,
should have age
the
restricted it.
condition was that they were gonna market exclusively, to get around
No,
it.
but, yeah.
They didn't.
But,
Okay,
yeah.
how about this? I want to make a suggestion. Why don't you get your clients together with 2 people on the planning board, and you guys sit down in a room, and you come up with something that makes sense for everybody? We don't need to keep bringing this on and everything else. Why do cooler heads prevail? You guys sit down with 2 people on the board, and try to come up with something that makes sense, that, makes it so that we can get those units back on the market and maybe helps the seniors out a little bit. All we're looking for is something that gives the seniors a little something that they didn't get a chance to even to look over there. Is that a fair? Because I don't think this board's going to be able to decide. I think your client has to actually be here and sit down with us and make it and talk about it and come up with a solution. Because that's the only way this is going to work, I see it.
Can we turn the tennis courts into pickleball, since no seniors are going to use the tennis courts?
They were never meant for seniors.
I know, exactly.
But, that's a great point, and I love that because I've seen a number of tennis courts that you do have the overlay of pickleball. And I will say seniors is defined as 55. We're
There's
still
one or
playing
two-
tennis at 55.
There's one or two of us on this board, yeah, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
But pickleball is hot, and if that, I would strongly suggest if that was up to you.
And
I like it.
what are you, what were you gonna suggest?
So I think ultimately, this does come back to the point that I do not believe that your client marketed these units appropriately. So one of the things I really wanted to make clear to our viewing audience and to the other members is, last time that you were here, I said that I believe that your client makes a mockery of this bylaw and of what we were trying to establish here. And I really want to make this as plain as possible using an example as to why Mr. Montanari is requesting additional funding. So in a given time frame with the 4 acres, let's just assume for argument's sake, because we asked last time what the current prices of the units and you didn't know. So let's just say for argument's sake that they're $500,000 times 4 homes, which is what could have been built on a typical 4-acre lot, right? So that would be $2 million, right? So because this was a senior residential development bylaw, they got more density, which means they got to, woohoo, make more units that were going to go to seniors. So 15 homes, it doesn't even count the 2 affordables. 15 homes times 500,000, they just made $7.5 million. Okay? So this is why we are saying that there needs to be a consequence for their inactions of marketing on stipulation or condition number 36. So that any funds would go to lowering the price of those 2 other affordables. Okay? This is why. Without them applying through the Senior Residential Development Bylaw, they wouldn't have $7.5 million in their pocket. They would have 2. And what has the town gotten out of it? Yes, we got some tennis courts because that was an amenity for the development.
I'm just gonna read to follow up with what Anna said, what Judy Barrett said to convince us to approve this. As we've stated before, there are 2 senior residential bylaws providing for more density than the town normally allows. First, to incentivize housing for seniors, and second, to create the economic basis for adequate services and amenities for this targeted population. The density is a trade-off for the services and amenities, not a guarantee. The population seeks to take advantage of the zoning provision that allows more development, which would otherwise be allowed, which would probably be 3 or 4 single-family homes on this site. So you got the density, you got the economic bonus, and we did not get the senior housing. That's why I am personally upset, because when you sat there and you told us you were gonna market it to seniors, we took you at your word that that's what's gonna happen, and I don't believe it ever happened. So I agree with Anna that there should be some consideration to help the seniors that were not allowed to buy this. And that's all I want to do is sit down with, have somebody, and I don't even want it to be me, somebody sit down with your clients and come up with something that is agreeable, other than just turning tennis courts into pickleball. We're talking serious money differences.
It's a joke.
Well, serious money differences than 4 single-family houses that could have been. Probably could have been 3 because of the road that had to go into service. But anyway,
I can, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say too is, just as a marketer, I can tell you from looking at what was done, they spent virtually no money on marketing, like none. I mean, it's pretty poor. So I think that gets back to the crux of what you're saying, is that marketing was not done. Effective marketing was not conducted in any way. You know, all you have to do is look at the materials and the placement, the media placement.
So
they saved a lot of money there.
Yep.
Go ahead.
One of the other items in this decision, number 17, says that the building permit for the first affordable unit should have been issued after unit number 8. And so what I wanted to know was, what took so long? Why are we sitting here years after, and those 2 units are still the only ones there? In fact, this particular developer should have built up to unit 7, and then number 8, that should have been built, and then that should have gone out to the lottery. But no, it didn't. So
It was built. It was built in sequence. They have been built. We had a holdup getting a certificate of occupancy because of issues here, but they were built in sequence. It was, because I know I did the condo docs, and that unit was, the first affordable was constructed.
And so something happened that, wow, all of a sudden, you can build units number 9 through 16 without any problem, and those get sold, right? And here we are again, years later, with those 2 units, and we have to now deal with it.
Right.
This is part of why your client needs to be held accountable for their inactions.
We have been trying to get approval through the planning department for the affordable housing lottery for, how long, Maren? Is it been over 12 months? I mean, it goes way back. So this is not a last minute, hey, we just found this out. We have been struggling with this. When we finally got through DHCD and they said, no, we're not going to accept these. We're looking for a way to solve this. We come into you and looking for an amendment. It sounds like we have an impasse here. I understand. I mean, I think at this point, I would ask that, it seems like we have a strong disagreement here. If the request or the outcome is still you're asking for money, then let's just close the hearing and you can vote to deny our request.
We're not going, I don't think anybody on this board is going to change it from a senior residential development, because that's what it was supposed to be. So if you want to be able to market those, you have to come back to us and give us something that makes sense to us, that helps the seniors in the town of Littleton. That's all we're asking you to do. Okay, that's what we're asking. And the only thing that helps the seniors in the town of Littleton is money that makes it so that seniors that don't have the money can buy one of these affordable units. That's, I don't know if, I'm not speaking for, I'm speaking for myself. I won't vote for it, and I won't vote to take 36 out of there. How about anyone else on the board? Do you want to take the senior component out of our decision?
From I'm only interested in this because I'm currently on the planning board, but how can you justify the additional density that was granted if it isn't a senior housing?
That's it, exactly.
How could that be? It's then not a senior, then the actions of the board, it just doesn't make sense. So, this is what lawsuits are made of, because there is a real honest difference of view on this. And, granted, it would be great if we could get these back into, the lottery and get them disposed of. But the view of the people on the board who were here at that time, there should be a cost to that. And I'm not going to go against that.
Okay. Violet? You basically said it's a senior residential.
Yeah, I think that was the deal. And, I'm desperate for affordable senior housing in this town. I'm on the Affordable Housing Trust. So I want to see these units occupied, but I don't think your client has done what he said he was going to do. And I think that coming to us, this year, when the unit number 8 was built a couple of years ago, I don't know when exactly it was completed, but, getting the rest of them built before that was marketed, I think that was, anyhow, there's a lot going on here that I am, I don't know what to do about it.
Well, I think maybe the first thing we should do is, I think as the board, we should decide whether we have the zoning enforcement officer sitting in our audience. Maybe we should send a letter to him to ask him to enforce the conditions that are in the decision. Maybe we should start there.
That would make sense.
As a board, we should at least start there, put him on notice. Mr. Mullen? Oh, we're trying to decide if maybe we should send a letter to the building department telling them that their Weber Village is in violation of the conditions of approval of their special permit and send it to you. I don't think we need town council for this. It's pretty much written out, so maybe our first step is should, as enforcement officers, send it to you, and maybe you can,
My office would accept a letter from the planning board with that request for enforcement, and we'll
Okay.
take it under, we'll take
Okay.
action.
I think maybe we should do that first, since we're not getting anywhere. It's obvious we're not going to change the conditions, so. Unless your clients want to come in and speak face-to-face with a couple members of the board, or we're gonna send a letter anyway, but it's up to them to decide what they want to do. Well, the door is open if they want to come in and discuss it, and they can decide who they even want to talk to. I'd be happy not to talk to them, but there's other members who are on, actually, it's only Anna and I who were on the board when it was done. So you'd have to obviously have one of us, but the door is open. If you're not, we'll send something along to the building department, but we're not going to.
And just, I'm sort of curious, in terms of enforcement action, well, what condition are you looking for him to enforce?
The fact that you're in violation of the whole special permit. So we'll let him decide what he wants to do, but I think we have to, this is getting us nowhere. We keep putting it on the agenda, we haven't gone anywhere. I think we have to go to take the next step.
Okay, and I think that would in part be closing this hearing. You can vote to deny our request.
We didn't open a public hearing?
It's not a public hearing. You came in and asked us if we would entertain the notion to put it on, and I think you've gotten your answer that none of us are interested in changing a special permit that we issued 2 years ago because your clients didn't live up to the spirit of intent of the special permit. I think that probably, in a nutshell.
Again, it's a true frustration of purpose here, where we have federal and state and local regs which don't allow us to do what you're asking for.
That's not true. What we're also talking about is that the marketing wasn't done. There were a lot of steps that were not taken.
DHDC does not let you market only to seniors unless it's a senior development.
And
An
it is
The
an
way
age-restricted-
in which you positioned the marketing materials and the scope of your marketing and the coverage was incredibly poor. So your client did not do a good job of marketing to seniors.
We can agree to disagree. We have other people waiting. If you don't want to take up our offer, we'll be forwarding something to the building department to see where we can go with that. Start thinking of legal actions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you as well.
All right, we have a 6:40, sorry we're running a little late. Continue public hearing, major commercial industrial use special permit, aquifer and water resource district special permit, site plan review of 1 and 2 Monarch Drive, new warehouse industrial building. Do we have a public notice that?
That we waived last time. Public hearing, major commercial or industrial use, aquifer and water resource district special permits, and site plan 1 and 2 Monarch Drive. Littleton Planning Board will hold a consolidated public hearing that you opened on May 5th and immediately continue to May 12th in room 103 of 37 Shattuck Street Town Offices to consider the application for special permits pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, and the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. The application for is a major commercial or industrial use special permit, aquifer and water resource district special permits, and site plan through the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. Property location 1 and 2 Monarch Drive, assessors map R10, parcel 16A, 16B, and a portion of 16. Applicant BMD Industries, owners CDKs-MEL LLC and CDK Realty Ventures 1 LLC. The applicant is proposing to develop a 98,150 square foot industrial building and appurtenances located at the end of Monarch Drive. And then it goes on to describe how to see the applications and to provide comments.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to hear our proposal. So Kyle Rayner from BMD. We also have Liz Altman from our traffic consultant from TEC, and Sue from Places Engineering. They'll each give a portion of the presentation to discuss the pertinent details. So we're here to propose a 98,000 square foot industrial building. As of today, we do not have a tenant, so it would be speculative. But obviously, we need a few permits from the board. We've taken a very thoughtful approach to laying this out. We feel as though we've come and we've met with Marin and others of the town to get feedback and incorporate that before we came. So I'm going to turn this over to Sue, but VMD is a local developer. We're Boston-based, a small real estate firm. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Sue, you're gonna have to walk me through which ones you want.
That's
One
okay.
of
If
the
you
slide
could
things
do-
is not,
Huh?
one of the slide things isn't working well, so.
Which one is not
The
working?
traffic came through, the other one I can't.
All right, well, that's why I brought boards. Just in case. Well, I apologize for that, I meant to bring extras. For the record, I'm Sue Carter from Places Associates, located right here in Littleton. This project is located at the end of Monarch Drive. The board and public may remember this as the site where the Hilton Hotel was proposed back in 2008, and prior to that, it was an old gravel pit. Right now, it shares a common driveway off the end of Monarch Drive, which is shared with Lot 1, which is 1 Monarch Drive. I'm going to put the rendering up. I don't know where is a good spot to put it so you can see it. You know what? So I'm finally getting smart. I have a laser pointer, so we can do it. So, let's see if that, no, it's not going to work. Too far to go. Or does it work? No. Okay, well, will you be able to hear me if I go over there?
Sure,
Is that
sure.
okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So, this is Monarch Drive. The cul-de-sac is actually not built out. The existing building at 1 Monarch Drive is over here. Littleton, Boxborough Town Line, and 495 is up here. So, this is north, south, east, and west. Sorry, I need my glasses. This site, I had the aerial that showed, it's basically isolated at the end of Monarch Drive. Much of the abutters are the Harvard Sportsman's Club that wraps around it. It's adjacent to the floodplain for Beaver Brook down and back. The building that everyone knows as the Amazon building would actually be more up in this area, to put it into perspective. And as Kyle had said, we're proposing a 98,150 square foot building where we don't know the final use of it yet. It's located in an industrial A zone and in the Aquifer Protection District. So as the legal ad said, the permits we're looking for are site plan approval, aquifer special permits that would be for the lot coverage. Special permits required if it's more than 15% and less than 30%, and in this case we have 22.7% impervious. Grading within 5 feet of the water table for some of the drainage, and more than 100 parking spaces. It's also, we need a major commercial or industrial use because of the size of the building, and also a stormwater permit under your new stormwater bylaw. So, as part of the construction of this site, the existing utilities for 1 Monarch Drive come through an easement that comes from the upper portion of Monarch Drive. So part of our construction to develop this site is going to be to relocate the electric line around the building, and we're also going to be using a portion of Lot 1 where their septic system is, and we will be rebuilding their septic system in a common area.
This building, because it's not known, it's been designed to have loading docks on both ends of the building, but we're proposing to build just 6 loading docks on the northerly end of the building, and there'll be a drive-in access to the building on both ends. So with this layout, what we've shown is there are 202 parking spaces, 6 loading docks, we have handicap spaces in front, and we also have 10 electric charging stations for electric vehicles. We also have some compact spaces trying to save on impervious. And in our submittal, we also showed you the alternative is if these were built out as loading docks, what that would result is we would be able to reduce the number of parking, we'd still have the same limits of pavement, but we would be reducing the number of parking spaces to 98. Because we don't know exactly what's going in this building and it's speculative, what we've done is we have the 2 alternatives on the plan, and this building would be built with knockouts that could be done if the loading docks are needed, if they get a tenant who wants to have more loading areas. And actually, if I can grab the building plan. And I'm glad one other time the electronics didn't work, so I wanted to bring it. So this is what we're seeing for the building. And this is just our first draft of the building. And this would be seen from the end of Monarch Drive, a 32-foot high building. As you can see here, there are loading docks on this side of the building. The front of the building's predominantly windows and parking for employees. And then what we also have, and this is all in your submittal package, so we have the different elevations for the building. So the front of the building is this top elevation. As you can see, it's very pedestrian and people-friendly versus the loading docks on the northerly side. Southerly side doesn't have the loading dock doors in place, but it has the ability for it. And then the back of the building does not have any access other than an emergency egress, which you can see along the back here. We have emergency egress. This site being in the Aquifer District, obviously drainage is a very important aspect of this. This site is also in endangered species habitat, so that added a little more complexity to our drainage design. So we have 2 main ways of dealing with drainage. In the loading dock areas, per your regulations, we have them draining to a trench drain, which would go to a storm scepter or a hydrodynamic separator with a gate valve. So if we had a major spill at the loading dock, they could access the gate valve, shut it off, and any contaminants would just pond in front of the loading dock area until it could be cleaned up. And that's pretty typical of what your regulations require, and we're seeing it in many of the local towns to deal with drainage at loading docks in that manner. After the hydrodynamic separator, it would go into a large recharge basin and a smaller one on the back of the building. But the main portion of the site we're having drained, low impact development using tree filter boxes. So tree filter boxes, I don't know if the board's familiar with them, but it's almost like a large, oversized concrete structure, like a bottomless manhole. And it has specific filter material in there with trees planted in it so that it can pick up and filter the pollutants that come out of the parking lot. So we have those around the outer perimeter of the parking lot. And the ones that we have on the outer perimeter, we do not have a standard tree grate on top of it. Because of the endangered species, if any of the turtles come onto the site, we want somebody to be able to look in and say, there's a turtle trap there, and they can get it out. Along the front of the site, where it's more important for, it's more people-friendly, we will have tree grates, and they'd be more of a traditional tree inlet like you would see in a more urban setting where there's a curb inlet and the tree actually has a grate on top. That's an area where there are less likely to be any turtles wandering onto the site, so that we felt that it was better to be safe for the pedestrians than necessarily for the turtles. Let's see, we have infiltration both in the basins, recharge trenches in between the tree box filters, and a small recharge area in the front. This accommodates all the roof runoff and all the parking lot runoff, so we have no direct discharge of untreated runoff into the wetland area. The wetlands on this site sort of wrap around the perimeter of the main building area, as well as further out, and then when you get out into the floodplain area of Monarch Drive. The system meets all the DEP stormwater standards and your stormwater bylaws. So we have, your bylaw requires that we have at least 90% TSS removal, that's the total suspended solids, and we've got 96% or better. You also require a minimum of 60% phosphorus removal, and we ended up with 89.3%. On this site, there is an existing conservation restriction that was in place with the hotel. Back in 2010, they designated conservation restriction area. So as you can see, of the area that we have here, there's white areas that we're not doing any work. Those are the areas of conservation restriction. Some of those areas are a true conservation restriction where you can't do anything. You can't remove vegetation, you can't change the grade or anything. We have a few of them were designated for drainage. We have a conservation restriction area for drainage here, here, and back here. As you can see, we're not using them, and that's because of the Littleton Conservation Commission 50-foot no disturb area. So we have a few small intrusions into that. That's a function of the existing grades. For the septic system, we have the existing septic system for 1 Monarch Drive is in this location. With that septic system and property line, it makes much of this site virtually unbuildable because of the setbacks would be 50 feet from the property line. And then with the conservation restrictions, it really cuts down the available area. That septic system was put in 1986, so it's at the far end of its lifespan. What we are proposing to do is to collect the sewage from this building and pump it around the building to a septic system and back. And we also will have the septic system and back for the new building. In this case, we're going to be using what they call the Advanced Enviroseptic System. People know it as the Advanced Presby System. And that is a gravity system that has a lot of aeration, and it actually gives you a higher level of treatment so that we're actually improving the situation of recharging the septic. It'll be a higher level of treatment before it's recharged. And I'll go quick, I know we're running tight on time. So that's what we're proposing there. We haven't applied with the Board of Health yet. We're starting to get feedback, and we'll be getting that. The other big thing that people are concerned about here is everyone knows that it's a priority habitat with natural heritage. Oxbow Associates is taking the lead on that. Back in 2010, a conservation management plan was put into place when the hotel was being proposed. That has since expired. Some of the provisions for it were completed, some weren't. We are intending to follow through on that. Brian is working with Natural Heritage to get a conservation management plan started again to cover the issues. So one of the things that is somewhat unusual is there's an existing culvert under Monarch Drive. We're going to have to take that out, replace it with a larger culvert that has open grates so daylight gets into the culvert so the animals will pass through the culvert. And that's a change that we're willing to do. In terms of the overall site and how it's impacted by the habitat, the conservation restrictions are already in place. Our area being developed are in areas that were previously considered by the conservation permit to be developed. So we're working within the parameters set by that. From a practical standpoint, the whole site will have to be surrounded by silt fences with limited access points for people and vehicles to get on the site that would be open and available during construction, and then if no one's actively on site, they have what Brian is calling turtle gates, which are basically a large 24-inch corrugated culvert that they pull across and block off between the silt fence, so the turtles cannot go around and bypass and get into the site. We've talked to him, and the site is somewhat sensitive to timing, not as much as it would be like you're used to with salamanders, and that's just to make sure turtles do not get into the interior of the site and start nesting if construction is imminent. So we're working with him on the timing of that to protect the turtles. Just as on the Amazon site, there'll be large signs identifying the turtles and telling all construction workers if they encounter them, the appropriate reporting process to make sure that they get, the notification is taken care of. Typically, Brian will go out there, or Oxbow will go out there and assess what's going on with the turtles. I will try to be quick, and I think the remaining thing that we have to go over, unless you have anything specific to the site, is Liz Altman is here to take care of the traffic, because we know that that is always a point of questions for an industrial or commercial site. So I will let Liz take on from here.
Thank you, Sue.
And I think you have, you said hers came through.
Hi, for the record, I'm Liz Altman. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning at TEC in Lawrence. And we performed a traffic impact analysis for the proposed development in accordance with national and MassDOT guidelines and industry standards. The study area included Taylor Street at both Route 2 ramps, Monarch Drive, and Foster Street. We also counted the Amazon driveway to confirm their trip generation and distribution of that facility. The counts were performed in March of 2022, and we compared those counts to the ones prepared or collected in 2019 for the Amazon study, and we found that several intersections still had some lower traffic volumes in 2022 than in 2019. So for the purpose of our study, we used the 2019 volumes, and we added on the Amazon trip volumes that we counted to create a baseline. So we usually take a snapshot of the worst case traffic scenarios. That would be the AM and PM peak hours of the commuters. And we add on to our traffic that is generated by the subject site. So as it is a speculative building, we looked at several different generating characteristics of different types of buildings that could use the 98,000 square feet. For that size building, the most conservative or the highest trip generator would be a manufacturing land use. And so that is what we used for the analysis of the trip impact on the adjacent roadway system. So that a 98,000 square foot manufacturing land use would generate 67 vehicle trips in the morning peak hour and 73 in the evening peak hour. So I guess you could go to the next one. We only have 2 slides. It's tried to be straightforward. The trip distribution on the roadways was by census data for journey to work. Therefore, 75% of employee traffic and 100% of truck traffic was distributed to and from Route 2. 5% of the employee traffic was distributed to and from the south on Taylor Street and Liberty Square Road into Boxborough. And the remaining 20% would be to the north on Taylor Street and to the east on Foster Street on local roadways. So outside of Monarch Drive and the Route 2 intersections, there's only maybe 10 to 15 vehicles on the local roadway intersections, and that's less than 2% increase volumes on any local intersection. That could be equivalent of the difference between a Wednesday and a Thursday between those intersections. There's no change to intersection delays on those local intersections expected with the addition of site traffic. In addition, the site is proposing some transportation demand management measures in order to potentially reduce some single occupancy vehicle trips, including transit maps and schedules, coordinating with the Crosstown Connect shuttle services to the train station, bicycle racks on the site, preferential electric vehicle and carpool parking spaces, rideshare pickup and drop-off location, and on-site amenities and flexible working schedules. I will also note that we are going through a state permit process, and MassDOT will be reviewing the impact to their intersections of Taylor Street and Route 2 through their permitting process. So, pretty straightforward that the traffic can be accommodated on the adjacent roadway system efficiently.
I have one quick question. Why you didn't look at it from a distribution standpoint rather than a manufacturing standpoint? Just like the Amazon distribution right next to you, which would obviously generate more traffic.
This was not of a size to be that kind of distribution facility. We did look at those types of facilities. They are typically larger than 98,000 square feet. So at a smaller square footage, they don't generate as much as a manufacturing square footage.
So you don't anticipate a distribution company coming in and purchasing?
That's my understanding, is not going to be a distribution type facility.
Does the board have any questions at this time?
I'm just curious about the use of the 2019. Is that because it's pre-COVID or?
Pre-COVID, right. So we're still seeing some residual impacts, especially around the MBTA stations, that you're just not getting the volume of traffic as it was in 2019.
To your comment, when we had the aerial photo, how big was the Amazon building?
120?
One, I thought it was like 150, but yeah.
Okay.
It's 150,000 square.
150.
That's what I
Okay,
thought.
so that is the Amazon building. And something 2/3 the size would be where the site marker is.
Correct.
Are you getting ready to send this out for peer review, Sue?
We have paid the fee for Green International. We gave that to Maren last week, and when we first submitted the plans, we directly sent them to Green.
Okay.
So they've had them since almost the same timing as the town having it.
We all glazed over with the drainage. Not that you didn't do a great job, but
It's okay.
you let Green kind of handle that.
That's fine. I just wanted you to know that we were being cognizant of the overlaying
Definitely a
regulations.
sensitive site.
Yeah.
Questions? Board have any questions at this time? Anna?
Thank you for coming in. Has anybody done an informal conversation with anyone about this particular project before coming in tonight?
Yes, we met with Maren,
Okay.
building inspector, the fire chief.
Okay, okay,
And Amy was with Maren the day that we met. We went over it in detail.
okay. Well, I have one question. So I was just curious on the plans, the A&R, or on the plans on page 16 and 17, it says A&R plan. So I was just curious why that was labeled as such.
If you recall, I said the septic system for Lot 1 or 1 Monarch Drive is in this location. We would be proposing with the A&R to create a small parcel to be adjoined and annexed with parcel 2A and 2B, which makes up basically what we're calling Lot 2.
So the small parcel is the existing septic.
Right, and then we would be building the shared septic back in the area that was designated as septic system area 1 and 2 on the conservation restriction plan.
So were you involved in the previous, the Hilton
The
proposal?
hotel, no.
When I was looking at the site plan, the sort of the blocks around, is that typical or is that unusual or?
That is unusual.
Okay.
Well, particularly in an industrial zone.
Yeah.
with a 50-foot setback. You normally would try to keep the lot lines as clean as possible
Mhm.
because of the setback impact on the buildable area of the property. So I don't really know why they did that. It didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Anyone else, Bartlett? Oh, Anna, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of you, please.
I'm just curious, we're about to see two giant buildings at the Common being torn down. Why do you think that another giant building is going to go in an environmentally sensitive area?
I'm quite frankly not familiar with the buildings that are being torn down.
Okay, well,
But we have had significant interest in this property. And what I can tell you is for modern Class A industrial flexed use, there is a lot of demand. And we have had some advanced talks with potential tenants. We're not far enough along where we can disclose any of those, but this is not expected to sit vacant for a single day. So
Can you explain the term industrial flex use?
yes, so in this situation, there's 50-foot column spacing and there's 32-foot clear heights, which is what a modern industrial user, and that can be anything from somebody storing boxes to somebody coming in to use maybe a larger portion of the building for office and doing some R&D space. That's also considered industrial, and that could be any type of R&D. It's not specific to a type of user, but the large space tends to lend itself to that use.
So, because the ultimate user is not defined, what if you had a user that would require you to, what would trigger having to come in again to go over a site plan? For instance, if you had a use that required more parking that you showed, would you just not entertain that as a user, or?
So for one part, we're limited on our parking and our employee counts based off of the septic size. So we also, we have as much parking as we need on site. So
Looks like they're pretty maxed out.
Yeah.
Oh, I know they're maxed
Yes,
out,
so
so that's my
That's
point.
That's why
is
we had
that-
the alternative,
Yeah.
if they were gonna go with an office use and need more parking, but still have the numbers down low, then we'd have to go like two-story instead of a single high bay.
So we've had users, and the reason why we're showing that is because those are the types of users who've expressed interest. And, some of the users want a little bit more office space, and some of them want a little bit more storage space. So it just depends on who ends up showing the most interest and, ends up being on the property. But
So in general, though, if the more office, the more parking.
we won't have, the more of the impervious will be used for passenger vehicles.
We have these distribution buildings in town, and they pretty much don't look like anyone's parking there. And, they have some, but not a lot. I'm just, I know you try to max out the site. This definitely looks maxed out. I want to talk about the 22% versus 15%, and what, how should we think about that? What justifies that?
Well, I think one thing that we've done is we've kept the same footprint. Part of the reason why the footprint, particularly on the south side's a little funky looking in the shape, was so that we had enough room for maneuvering of tractor-trailer trucks to get into the loading dock. And to show that we could be versatile in the building, this is the same exact impervious area as what we had shown with the loading docks. And I think that's on.
You did have that in your package.
Yeah, I had that so you could see the alternative because we didn't know, but we wanted to show that we considered both options.
So there's more paving there than you otherwise would need if there's no loading.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a much wider aisle than we would normally do. I'd normally do 24-foot aisles, and this one is about 32 feet wide. And that was just because I was trying to be as efficient with a parking configuration layout as I could be within the pavement.
Okay.
Anyone else? Bartlett? Are you good?
No, I have questions.
Okay.
Actually, there are probably more comments than anything else, but per Mr. Harvey's comment, I would say that knowing that there are so many other places around town that could be repurposed and, or other potential land even, that isn't so close to our water resource area that was just acquired by the town through a gift by
Amazon.
well,
Not Amazon.
Not Amazon.
Well, yeah,
Amazon's agents.
Northwich, yes.
and so close to nature, I just really rather surprised that this is before us in this manner, in that much space. And so I think given the fact that this is coming to us as a special permit under the major commercial bylaw, a couple of things I want to point out immediately. Degree of assurance that no planned processes or unplanned contingency will result in undue hazard or contamination of air, land, or water resources. We have been told this evening that you don't know who the client is going to be that's going to be coming in here, and you have put in your documentation that you don't need to tell us about any hazards that might be, or toxins that might come in with that particular client, and so you're absolving yourself of that by saying, we don't need to tell you. And so that particular piece of the bylaw says that it is up to us to make sure we get a degree of assurance that there isn't going to be any contamination. And you can't tell us that until you can tell us who your client is.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
We have been right up front when VMD first came in the door at our office, that being in the aquifer, we need to go through and we need to list everything in a building, even if it's stuff in a janitorial closet, if it's in the wrong concentration. And we also, they're very clear on getting the aquifer protection bylaw. So when they have been negotiating with potential tenants for the building, it's been clear to them that these tenants will have to come back before the planning board if they have anything within their building that will fall in under the aquifer protection bylaw as a regulated chemical or hazardous material. So they're very much aware of that, and they've been dealing with that in their marketing for the site.
And just to add on to that, yes, what Sue said is very accurate for the marketing of the site. It doesn't necessarily say that on the marketing flyer or the brochure, but when we have somebody who's interested, we obviously flag that it's in the aquifer district and they get a copy of the bylaws. So we're very cognizant of that, and we've lost potential leads as a result.
Also, it'll be monitored, obviously. The water department will monitor.
So this occurs during a tenant fit-out, or how does this occur?
Before the tenant even gets in there, they'll have to come back before us.
Okay.
We would anticipate if they have a tenant that triggers any aspect of the aquifer protection bylaw, that they would be responsible to come back to the board and get a permit for that particular section of the bylaw that they trigger for a special permit.
And they wouldn't get a building permit or an occupancy permit till they've done that anyway.
I think
So-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we're all very cognizant of the location and the sensitivity of the site, and that's why we've really pushed it. And right now, this site there's parts of it, it's like no man's land. When they did the gravel removal years ago, it never got revegetated, so there's places where you can walk and kick up sand because it's just totally exposed. So that it's not a pristine site. And the location and proximity to the highways does make it an ideal location for an industrial building.
And that's something that I meant to add, is the proximity to access to 2 and 495, which is particularly why the traffic impacts are minimal, because that's predominantly who would be interested in this building. And, as Sue went through the drainage, I know everybody's eyes glazed over, but we've been very, very thoughtful about how to minimize the impact with the use of tree boxes and recharging the stormwater. And, I know there's a lot of technicality in there, but we've spent a lot of time thinking about that.
But I think, one of the biggest areas of contamination on these kinds of sites is from private cars, from passenger cars. And I mean, that's, and I didn't mean to interrupt, I'll
No,
let you
you're
go,
good.
but I'm gonna wanna hear a lot more about what you're gonna do to minimize the number of cars that I don't see really in the transportation demand management. You know, it looks very cursory to me, so I just wanted to point that out, and
Thanks,
please
Delisa.
go on.
Well, what we are doing is, we've committed to adding 10 EV charging locations, and I know that that's,
That's minimal, but we don't need to go into that. I'll let Anna finish first, but I think there's a lot more that can be done that I, as a planning board member, will want to see.
okay.
Well, and the second part that I wanted to bring up from that major commercial special permit bylaw is it says degree of threat to environmental resources, including loss of valuable trees and other vegetation, disturbance to habitats, and soil loss through erosion. So degree of threat to habitat. So again, we're going to be needing to go through a lot of detail to understand this, because the sheer amount of work that you described, Ms. Carter, about what's going to have to happen if turtles happen to be in the area, wow.
It's a lot of
That's a-
monitoring. I was
it's a
like, who's
lot
gonna
of
check the
monitoring.
traps?
Oxbow.
And, you know, yeah.
Oxbow's gonna be involved
Yeah,
heavily.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very
Unfortunately,
similar to
he
what
was
happened
unable
at
to,
Amazon.
to join, yes, but it's very similar to Amazon, and, you know, this property was set aside through the conservation restriction, and, you know, we do have an individual or a company that is helping us manage that. He just happened to be out of town tonight, and.
I want to say that there's a real huge difference in my brain about this particular idea and what was happening over on the Amazon site, and that is that that was already an established industrial building. We're talking about clear cutting everything that's in an area versus what,
Versus retrofitting.
Yeah, have you been over there? Because it doesn't
There's not
look,
much.
Yeah,
there's not much there. It looks like it was at one point a building pad.
Yeah. To be honest with you, Jeff, when you go out there and you're walking, and if you look at the topography, it doesn't show because of the colors. It feels like it was a pad, it was pad ready.
Yeah.
And that was kind of hard for us to do a warehouse with loading docks because it was
Well,
all,
and-
it was
and,
like
Yeah,
a
but
you
the
know,
fact is, the turtles are still there, and to the
No,
turtles,
the turtles,
there's no
but in
building.
terms of, in terms of vegetation,
There's
and
very
there's
little.
not much there.
Are there any vacant buildings that could even be retrofitted in that area? Do you know, Mara?
No, I wouldn't have that
Okay,
information.
I just,
Anyway.
okay.
so those were the comments that I wanted to make as a result of hearing your presentation, and so thank you.
I would encourage you to look on Mass GIS with the aerials. You'll see how sparse the vegetation is. And if the board wants a site walk, we'd be happy to accommodate you.
It's not the vegetation I just
The,
solely focused on.
We're continuing this obviously till
Yeah.
June.
Yeah, so a discussion about the next meeting. Everybody's available for June 2nd?
Yeah.
And,
You
So we can ask more
Yeah.
questions then, because
Yes.
I have a lot more I want to.
And I would also
Ask.
like to ask if at some point we can get light and water in here to talk about the impact of this idea with what they're planning for the wells out there.
Okay. Just to the side of there, they were talking about the turtles. That's what had to be done. All of you know about the flyover for Route 2 and the corner there, not Kelly's, I forget which. They had to redo all of this because of the endangered species, the turtles over there, to make it so they could go under Route 2. Anyway, what time? And by that time, maybe we'll have some feedback from Green within a couple of weeks?
yeah, they're supposed to have their initial peer review done just before the meeting on June 2nd.
Okay.
So if we start that meeting at 6:30, would you want to do this one first, or?
Sure.
Okay.
And I would like a
I'm
site
going to wear
walk.
my sweater, I'm so cold.
Hold
Sure.
your place.
Do you want to do it after the June 2nd meeting?
I don't care
You wanna do
when,
it
but
before?
before we vote.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think when black flies ease up.
Okay.
There's one site that doesn't have a lot of poison ivy, which is good, but
Okay.
the black flies could be pretty bad.
Maybe after we get some initial feedback.
Is the one Monarch occupied? Is that in use?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, so
And then, so, I imagine we have some comments?
anybody on the board, yes, sir, name for Myron, please?
My name is Michael Zaborowski. I'm a resident at the end of Harwood, at the intersection of King, right where the railroad tracks and everything crosses. I'm also an amateur naturalist, and I've been monitoring this site for the past 3 years. And the land that's being described as almost useless with little vegetation, and you can kick up the sand, that actually is the prime nesting habitat for an endangered species in the state. And I'm familiar with the whole town. That is the best nesting site in the entire town for the threatened turtle that lives there. And what makes it so perfect is just what she's describing as almost useless land. Sandy, sparse plants. It's where they nest. So you all mentioned, somebody mentioned the gifted 58 acres that you got that's all wetlands. Well, these endangered turtles live in that beautiful parcel that you guys acquired. But they nest on that dry, sandy, open plain. So you have all these turtles in this wonderful protected land you just acquired. But if this building goes in, they have nowhere to nest. They got pavement, and that's it. And it is absolutely the best nesting spot in this entire town for a turtle that's extremely rare in the whole country, let alone in the state. The other thing I wanted to say quickly, I'm looking at this picture, and it looks eerily like the building that was just knocked down to put the Amazon building in. So you got a few hundred yards away, a big industrial building that failed and knocked it down. Now you want to put another one in that looks just like it.
One comment. The building that was knocked down was an office building.
Okay.
It was not, it's a different use, and unfortunately, the market, we're in the process of knocking down perfectly good office buildings, not we, but developers, that were built 40 years ago, that are perfectly good, but there's no one wanting to occupy them. So that, I see your point.
Yeah.
It was amazing that they knocked down a beautiful, it had furnishings in it, it had everything in it. And it just went into, demolition for a parking lot.
So we're talking about speculative build.
Yes.
Wiping out endangered species habitat on speculation.
So do you have any, are there any techniques of recreating
Well, maybe we can save
nesting?
that to the
think
next
Mark-
year.
Well, but
right?
If I could
Yeah.
just let you know,
Yeah.
that was part of the original conservation management plan.
Okay.
There's an area designated and approved by Natural Heritage
Okay.
to remain as a nesting site that is more embedded in wooded areas, so there won't be as much interaction, because even if nothing happens here, it's still directly adjacent to a parking lot. But there's an area back further in the site, roughly off in this area, where it's designated by Natural Heritage as where they want their nesting site.
So we need to have
We need more
that
information.
consultant
Right.
coming
O'Brien
in.
will be here at the next meeting. He
Okay.
just had
Okay.
he was ready to go last week, and then when it got postponed till
And-
this week.
So
and if
let's
you
make
could
sure
come
he's
to that
here.
meeting and
I would absolutely
Yeah.
come to it. I would also say, you mentioned a site visit in June. In mid-June, they're going to be there. The turtles are going to be there. If you were to take a site visit at, say, 6, 7, 8 in the evening in mid-June and walk across this land that was just described almost as useless,
I never said useless.
Well, I know,
said
I'm sorry, I'm
barren.
putting words
I
into
said
you.
barren of vegetation.
barren of vegetation.
That's not the same as useless.
Okay, I retract useless then and go with barren vegetation, because barren of vegetation sounds, to us humans, as not that useful, not that attractive. To a nesting turtle, it's heaven. They're what they need the most.
So would we be disturbing the
Yes.
turtles, though, if
We
we went
would.
for a site? So we don't want to do it then?
You don't, you really don't.
All right,
That's a valid
let's just
point.
get somebody in here at our next meeting to talk.
We will
Because
get Brian.
and we will
otherwise
have
this is going
Oxbow
to
in
go on
here. And
All right,
forever.
let's continue this.
Yeah, let's
till
And
then.
of course, we are working with Natural Heritage very closely
Okay.
to follow the protocols.
Anything else, sir, or do you want to wait till Oxbow's here?
Well, I'll just throw out real quick, because of where I live at that intersection. That intersection wasn't even mentioned in the traffic study. But that is a hellacious intersection. It's a 5-way, not counting the train crossing. 5-way intersection with the train crossing. We have all the industrial traffic from Patriot Beverage, which happens to be my employer. We have all the people trying to get to Route 2 and 495. And we had a truck get hit by a train a couple of months ago, whatever it was. That intersection does not need more traffic. It wasn't even included in the study, but you know people going to a building there is going to go through that intersection.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll continue this till then.
So Thursday, June 2nd, at 6:45 PM,
Correct.
this room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I recommend a vote to continue.
Thank you. Anyone want to make a motion to continue this?
I move, I so move.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have to do that.
Thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
tonight.
All right, we have a 7:10.
We gotta make up some time, man.
I know, I'm trying. You guys keep talking.
Yeah, I need to.
Go ahead, take a couple of
Yeah.
minutes. Thank you, by the way. For helping me. With the other, thank you.
I'm still alive.
No.
Well,
Play nice now.
Yeah.
If you're gonna yell, yell at him.
No, it's not. I thought it was, but it's not. It's, the Newtown Hill will be on next in June?
No, when they decide to come back for another
Oh,
discussion.
okay, so it's up to you.
I'll just check it.
All right.
Thanks. Did you want to contact the
You
developer,
owe me a nickel for that.
the new owner? Just give me a call and
Yeah,
we'll
and
try
I
to
can just
connect.
check the website too, right? You always post the PDF on there? Great, thanks.
But I don't know why, because I used to own it. I don't know why it's on. Really shouldn't be. I'm not involved. I live near it. But I'm gonna make a statement first. I did go through. I did go through.
Well, I
the-
just wanted you to.
I know it's on there. I got a
be aware
thing.
of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
I'm just concerned about the time. This is Littleton. Is there any way we can postpone this?
No, they want to hear it. They want to come. This is the water department. Why do you want to postpone it?
Just because I think we want to get to these and they could come
We're
back.
gonna we'll give the Reader's Digest version, right?
Okay, Reader's Digest.
Okay. On everybody. You've been so warned. You know, we don't get paid after 9 o'clock. Is everyone back?
We can do the hearing notice while we're waiting for the last member. So, last week you had opened and immediately continued the public hearing. So I'll read the notice this time. Public hearing, Aquifer and Water Resource District Special Permit and Site Plan for 242 King Street. Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 5th, 2022 at 7:45, which has been continued to this evening, to consider the application for special permits under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, and the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. Application is for an Aquifer and Water Resource District special permit and site plan through various sections of the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. Property at 242 King Street. Applicant and owner, Littleton Water Department. The applicant is proposing to construct a new centralized municipal water resources recovery facility, including building for processing, driveway access, and associated site improvements. And the application and plans are available online, and any comments either come to the meeting or provide comments in writing to the planning board, and it includes my planning board email address.
It's like my office at home.
Before you start, I just have a declaration. I'm listed as an abutter on this. I am not. The town has, they keep sending me tax bills. I was the former owner of it. I did sell it to the light and water department, to the sewer department. I guess I still technically.
Water department.
So I have checked with the Attorney General's office. I have filed a disclosure with town clerk that I don't have any vested interest in this. I'm happy to stay on. If anybody has an issue with me staying on, I think I probably know the property better than anybody else. I've lived there for 40 years, so I have no problem. If the board has any concerns about me staying on, speak now. No, but I've declared and everything else, so, anyway, just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Dave Ketchin, the Assistant General Manager of the Light and Water Department here in town. We're incredibly excited to be here tonight. This is a milestone in this project that has been before the town for many years. The idea has been floated out and kicked around. I'm here with a team from CDM Smith to present this project to you guys tonight. We've got Cara Johnston, Maggie Lofsted, and Diane Vallarduccia. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So with that being said, this project is ready to go. We're ready to hear your feedback and the town's feedback and implement any changes that we can. We have had numerous forums along the way through different portions and parts of this project since we've taken ownership of the project from the select board. And those have been well attended for the most part, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from those as well. So we look forward to the continued discussion, and I'll pass it off to Cara.
Thanks, Steve. Mara, do you mind pulling up the site plan?
Which page here? That one?
That one's good. Thank you and good evening, everyone. As Dave said, my name is Cara Johnston with CM Smith. I'll just give a brief overview of where we are with the project, and Diane can give a brief overview of the stormwater components, and Maggie is here as well if there's any specific permitting or wetland-related questions. So as Dave said, we are the designers working on the Phase 1A project. The project does include 2 contracts, one being the sewer expansion project, which includes the actual sewer in the roadways. The focus of that is sort of the stem of the sewer system expansion, primarily focused in the common area. There will be 2 major pumping stations that will pump wastewater flow to the proposed facility here at 242 King Street. The 2 pumping stations will be at the middle school, which is an existing station that would be upgraded and increased in size in order to accommodate the additional flow from the expanded sewer system, as well as from Littleton High School, where the current package plant is located. Once this new facility would come online, the existing small 17,000 or so gallon per day facility would be decommissioned by the water department. So wastewater flow would be pumped from those 2 pump stations to this facility here. The wastewater would come into the site. We would have a proposed access road, as you can see here, that brings us to the middle towards the back of the site here. The first component of the plant is an equalization tank. That's a below grade tank, completely covered. There's also a biological tank adjacent to that. Those are covered as well. And then there is a process building, that third box that you can see there, that has the remaining portion of the treatment plant. And just to the right of that is the generator, transformer, and odor control components. So again, that's the full extent of the site. We're working through permitting with the local conservation commission, Mass Historical, Mass DOT, and other permitting agencies required for the site. And with that, I can pass up to Diane to give a brief stormwater overview.
Thank you. Could you please go to the next drawing? Yeah, thank you. So the site is required to comply with the Littleton Stormwater Bylaw as well as the 2008 Massachusetts Stormwater Standards. So to manage the stormwater, we are proposing 3 infiltration basins, one near the entrance driveway, one towards the back of the western side of the site, and one at the northern end of the site. And they are designed to take all the stormwater runoff from the plant as well as the driveway area and provide at least and retain at least 1 inch of water and recharge it into the groundwater. In addition, we are planning to put in a culvert, as can be seen, going in a east-west direction. Currently, on the western side of the site, there's an existing low-lying area where water between Beaver Brook and that low-lying area flows as a natural conductivity, but with the installation of the driveway, that would be blocking that area. So to maintain that hydraulic conductivity, we're proposing to put in a culvert to maintain it. And that area
that the existing low-lying area will provide some peak attenuation as well as some floodplain compensation for the site to account for some of the construction that'll be going on within the floodplain area. In addition, water quality treatment is being provided through the infiltration basins, and we are attenuating the flows for the 10 and the 100-year storm. For the 2-year storm, there's a very slight increase of 0.1 CFS at the site, and that's mainly due to portions of the site that are not of the site, that's the existing house, as well as the edge of the property, edge of the driveway to the 50-foot no disturb zone. That is not tributary to any of the basins, and it just generates a tiny amount of flow. I think that's pretty much, I'll turn it over to Maggie or Dr.
I'll just wrap up here. So one last thing just to point out, we've been working with the water department and with Marin as well to identify what the build-out flows are expected for the town in this system. So the initial construction of the facility is planned for around 208,000 gallons per day, and that matches what the capacity is of the recharge site up at the high school. So the clean effluent, once it gets through the plant, is going to be pumped from 242 King Street up to the high school to be recharged below grade. We are planning for a potential future flow up to 290,000, so we're leaving space for any additional equipment that needs to be added in the future to get up to that flow. But for right now, the initial capacity will be 208,000.
So that will be drinking water quality when it leaves here, or close to it?
It'll be very close.
And it'll be pumped up to the ball fields up at the...
That's the current proposal, right below the athletic fields.
Board have any questions?
I feel stupid, but what is the dark black line?
That's the 100-year floodplain, right?
Okay.
Just a little history, when they built 495, they were supposed to put that culvert in, so that the water, because that drainage is all 495, coming from 495 culverts. And the state cheapened out and didn't do it and created that little wetland. So now, basically, what you're getting now is what was done, should have been done 50 years ago when 495 came in, connect the water and let it go into Beaver Brook, which is what you're doing now.
Southeast access ramp and 495.
Right.
And on that side of the street goes underneath 242, underneath King Street, and discharges to that area.
And the feed for this comes in through the driveway or comes in?
For the stormwater?
No, for the sewage.
Oh,
driveway.
through the driveway, it'll be
Okay.
pipes below ground, yep,
So it
and they'll
goes
go
down
below
King
the
Street
culvert.
and- Okay.
Yep, so you'll have 2 pipes coming in, one up from the high school and one from the middle school, so from 2 directions.
So I'm disappointed that you're knocking on the house in the carriage shed, but I probably should have done a little more repairs to them, so I guess I can't complain. But so that's gonna be tucked up right, basically next to the highway, because it slopes up right there, so you're gonna be right at the highways on.
Right, and
other side.
the reason for that was to avoid the 50-foot buffer zone from the wetland, so that's why it's set back towards the highway.
We also
So-
maximize the use of the clear area.
Yes.
To limit the tree removal.
And to use the slope there as a buffer as well.
Right.
So the actual road itself, from where it currently comes into that lot, is it going to be moved, or is it going to still be that same road, which is between the house and the barn?
It's pretty much just about in the same location, it might be shifted a few feet.
A little to the west, because you can still see the bit of the cul-de-sac
Yeah.
area.
But no one will be living in
No,
that house?
well, we don't know what the disposition of the house is.
Yeah, I believe the water department's still looking into options.
Yeah, that hasn't been decided yet by the water commissioners, what's gonna happen.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns? Go ahead.
I have another question. So, in terms of tree removal, how much of that will take place? Because I saw the listing of all the trees, but then I don't think I remember seeing, like, how many will be removed.
How many trees will be removed?
It's basically, the back part out there is a field. It was an old bean field back in the day. There are some pines that have grown in. I'm your expert, I know. Towards the back a little bit, some old pine trees, but most of the stuff on the ridge, it looks like they're gonna keep it, and the middle of it was all a wide open field. And like I said,
Are the trees, the circles that are on the base plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't recall exactly the number. There's also a lot of white ash, which has
It's all
damaged
dead
by
anyway.
the ash borer, the emerald ash borer.
But-
That's kind of near King Street.
Oh, yeah.
Those are coming down to, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but to compensate, there is a proposed planting plan
Yeah,
included
they
in
have
the
a
design
planting
set as
plan.
well.
And I think I sent you an updated planting plan today. I don't know if you got it.
Probably so.
So are
But
we?
it's pretty similar to the.
We've been working with the Conservation Commission on that lately.
Okay, I'm curious about, this, where King Street crosses 495. Is that gonna be manicured, or is it gonna be natural, or the big slope down where the overpass
Oh, that'd
is?
be natural, yeah. Let's
It'll
go
be
out to the
unchanged.
planting.
I'm not sure I want it to be natural, I'm just curious, what the, because it's just bittersweet and.
Yeah, it's crap.
Crap. But anyway, okay. I'll look at the planting plan and see what you're planning.
Well, I think there's an easement across over there anyway to get to the hot, there's telephone poles over there. I think the power lines go that way too. So they're all overgrown with crappy trees and stuff like that too, so. Anyway.
So the next step is continue on the peer review process?
Mhm.
Yep, we received the initial comments yesterday, so we're working through those and we'll get in touch with Maren on responses.
Green is actually here.
Continue to,
Well, do you want to
do you have
hear
any
the 2 words? first?
questions or concerns so you can build for it?
I mean, yeah, you had my comments, concerns about compensatory flood storage, but, based off of what they had, it looks like they meet it. So we just wanted to get some, more information to kind of double check their work, do our due diligence. We had some concerns about maintenance access of all the BMPs, just because they're kind of spread out, and especially that 4-bay in the back there. And then we saw that the house was going to be sold, and as for a different property. So that said that in the narrative, so I wasn't sure if the site was going to be subdivided. Also, the driveway, there's no driveway access for it now under the proposed plan. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
That'll all come back at our next meeting.
I don't think the water department really knows what they want to do.
Yeah, we are planning on subdividing that, and then I'm not sure what the next steps after that will be, but yeah, we do realize that the driveway will be removed on this.
So we have made a suggestion to the water department that this property would be a nice location for a veterans home or something like that, so I think you guys are mulling it over, so that was my
A
intention.
senior veteran.
Senior, well, all the veterans are seniors now, trust me.
That's true. Well, no, that's
But the
true.
question would be, would they provide access from
They'd have
the
to.
drive? They'd have to.
Provide, you'd have to pretty much provide it from the
Which
drive.
Yeah, if you look, I think, plan south of the house, there might be room over there for a
Oh,
driveway.
there's plenty of
too,
room over there,
yeah.
but if the easiest way is just to use the road.
Right.
Especially where you're taking and pushing it
Yeah,
that way.
we'd prefer not to have a shared driveway for obvious reasons, but we're still trying to figure out what to do.
Anyone else? Anna?
Well, I just have one final comment, and that is that in my time of being here, I don't think I've ever had an applicant where it's an all-female engineering team, so way to go.
I think in
And
my
for the
30
town.
years, I've never had one either.
Well,
Wow,
there you
first.
go, it's a momentous evening.
All right, so we're going to continue this.
Yep, Thursday, June 2nd, let's see, the first one is at 6:45, half an hour, so 7:15 for this one.
Okay, someone want to make a motion that we continue this till June 2nd at 7:45?
7:15.
7:15.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're right back on schedule, only a little late. We have a 7:40 informal discussion, 410 Great Road.
We're an hour behind.
I know, well, hey, you guys talk a lot.
Okay.
Reader's Digest version, gentlemen, remember.
Yes, sir. We'll keep it short and sweet. If the board doesn't mind, I just have two pictures I want to add to the, just for reference. One an aerial picture and one a front street picture. These two. we appreciate your time and your feedback at the last meeting, and just have an update and a
Littleton
few
Gun
questions.
Shop Central.
Yeah, you're here.
Maybe it's that building, let's see, gun shops.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sven Heisted, and I'm here on behalf of the ownership team for 410 Great Road. And we appreciate your time here tonight, and I realize we're running short, and I'm going to try to make my moments here as succinct as possible. This is a follow-up meeting from an informal meeting we had a couple weeks ago where we were talking about general concepts for the property, and we've looked at many different options. And at the last meeting, you provided some useful feedback and indicating that you prefer that the front of this building that abuts Great Road, which is in the street picture there, be retained, and would be entertained or be flexible about the back part of the building, which is a real industrial-looking piece of the property, be altered or rebuilt. And we've looked at that, and we're happy to go along with that, and appreciate your guidance, and we think we can make a nice project there, work with those two components. So we wanted to just sort of let you know briefly what we had in mind, and then hopefully kind of get some feedback on you, if you had any additional comments about the project in general, and then would plan to come back to another day with a lot more details about exact site layouts and parking and drainage and all those things. So we're just trying to sort of get some general high-level feedback about sort of the direction, because we were at one point entertaining the idea of removing everything and doing something different, and if we're going to go down this path, we want to make sure we're going down a path that you're comfortable with. So we have, just as a note, we have retained Attorney Paul Alphin here, who's nice enough to come here tonight. He did look through the zoning and has written a zoning opinion and is happy to answer questions if anybody has it. The Cliff Note versions of that, if you don't mind, I'll just mention that this would fall under your zoning that has to do with existing buildings and the ability to reuse and renovate and reconstruct existing buildings within the zone. And there is a path to do that in the zoning. It does require a couple of special permits, which would be under the purview of the planning board. So assuming you're inclined to do that, that would be the path to what we're looking to do. We did this housekeeping thing. We did get a note from you guys about a letter that we received regarding a water report from last year. There's some water monitoring wells on the property that are tested every once in a while. And there was a report done last year, and a couple of the wells, two of the wells were slightly over the state limit on a couple of items. So we are in receipt of that, and we'll engage an appropriate engineer and company through the civil engineering firm to address that. So we haven't done that yet, but we will do that, and appreciate your reminder on that. One of the things I did want to just mention is that the general concept we have here is a mixed-use project, and in keeping with the spirit of the form-based code, along the building that faces along Great Road, the plan would be to have commercial-facing buildings interfacing with the street here. And one of my specific questions, if anybody had opinions or guidance on how to do that best, because it's kind of an unusual situation with this building being a stepped multi-level building with a street that is on an incline. And there's different ways to go about converting that first floor to commercial. We could leave the windows and make it more office looking, or we could open the fenestration there and make it more commercial street front. And I don't know if the board has any strong preference on that regarding how to make this building interface with the street along there. If you do, I'd be happy to hear them. The general plan in the back would be to build within, or should I say rebuild within the existing footprint. Again, it's a pre-existing building that doesn't conform to the exact dimensional or coverage areas of the form-based code, but the plan would be to reconstruct within the existing footprint, and we would be reducing the lot coverage area and also providing drainage on site, which essentially is non-existent at the moment. So we have an off-site sewer system, which is done on a right-of-way with adjacent property on Littleton Lumber, that we would be abandoning and fully supporting the sewer system, which was just up here for discussion. So this project is contingent upon that sewer system being installed. So I guess with that, we do envision keeping the middle. There's sort of three parts of this building. There's a front part of the building on Great Road. There's a middle kind of connector section, which incorporates that large boiler room we were talking about last time with those gigantic freight engine-sized boiler doors. And then there's a back part, which is an industrial, more of an industrial building. The front two parts we would picture keeping and retaining, including that boiler room there. And somebody was tossing around the idea of having the boiler room beer garden down there, because there's actually an enclosed portion in the middle of the building, which is like a interior courtyard right adjacent to that boiler room. So maybe we'll try and solicit somebody to make a business down there, and we can all go have a boiler beer. So I guess with that, if the board has questions, we're trying to get some sort of confirmation of your direction from last time, that you're kind of pointing us into the path of renovation and reconstruction rather than raising and rebuilding. So with that, I'll.
Okay, thank you. Board have any questions or concerns or?
I just want to be clear, so what you just said is that you would keep all three of these?
That's the current
Okay.
game plan. We would like to make some changes to it in terms of how it interfaces with the street, but yes, keep those,
Okay.
all of that whole assembly along the front. There's many parts of the building, but all of it that faces Great Road, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Since Mr. Alphen is here, could we have a just quick summary of this existing building versus new form-based code requirements, et cetera?
Thank you. We will need a special permit. This is still in the Water Resource Protection District, notwithstanding bringing in sewer. You're still in the district. Unless the zoning bylaw changes, we need a special permit for that. Under the form-based code, this would require site plan approval by the planning board. What's different about the calculation is because the building is a pre-existing non-conforming structure and a pre-existing non-conforming use, a special permit, well, two special permits would be required. A special permit would be required in order to alter the pre-existing non-conforming structure and to change the non-conforming use to another use, even though it would be transferred to a conforming use where mixed use is allowed in the zoning district now. Because again, we anticipate having the commercial on the first floors at Great Road and have residential in the balance of the building. A conservative view of zoning is you still need a special permit to change a non-conforming use even to a permitted use. We would meet the parking requirements, so no special permit would be required for that. We'd use the same formula that's in the form-based code. It's anticipated that some of the parking will be underneath the building and some of it will be surface parking, but all of it will be in the rear, which is required by the code. A lot of the other elements of the code regarding design and distance between buildings and that sort of thing don't necessarily apply because of the reuse of the pre-existing building. And I understand from Schwen that your previous discussions were that you would want to retain the existing building, but we've assured ourselves that we can do that just with the special permits that I've mentioned. And it can all be done at this board. If I didn't say it already, under the form-based code, the special permit granting authority is this board, and it would not be necessary to go to the zoning board.
I think one of the issues and why we had the informal discussion the last time was the density. You're gonna pretty much max out this site. You're not gonna have a lot of green space. You're putting some of your parking inside because you can't really fit it outside, so density is definitely a concern here as far as what you're going to be able to do out here.
I hate to say it, but we could get more units than we're proposing. We're proposing 80 units. We could get more under the code, but we know better than to propose more than 80 units. So we're here with 80 units.
Well, I'm personally thrilled to see that you're planning to keep the existing building. I mean, I think it's part of Littleton's history, it's New England, you know. And you asked about this area. I'd rather see retail down here than office. You know, I don't think we need more office. I think we need more retail, so, just my input.
And in that regard, what we're looking for is sort of a concept on how to proceed and do that. Do you change the windows out, do you change the size of the windows, the fenestration, which is a term that's
Right.
used in the form-based
No,
code?
you don't.
Or do you
Why
keep
not?
it, or do you
Who
keep
cares
it?
about these little ones down here? I
No,
don't
no,
think
no,
we
they're
have to
saying
take-
about like making big plate glass.
No, I'm talking down here on
Well,
this bottom.
first of all, we're not here to design
Yes,
the
but,
project.
yes, exactly, but I was just,
And we can't tell you whether 80 is the
And we
number
can't
that's
tell you,
gonna work.
yeah, and we can't tell you, really, this is an unusual, this is why I asked you about this. I mean, when does form-based code, when does the design part of form-based code engage in this site if
It's historical.
If the back part is gone, you know? Why couldn't it just be, you know, a New England Village back there? Why, you know, or you could build a pedestal, you know, with parking underneath and build the village look on top. I mean, once again, we're not here to design it.
No.
It's unclear.
because I could argue it'd be
And
better
we
to have
couldn't-
it fit into
We couldn't endorse 80
this.
units because we haven't seen any,
Right.
you know, we haven't seen anything.
For purposes of trying to interpret the code, I think you'd get yourself in a pretzel if you had a mix of the pre-existing non-conforming building and the new, smaller form-based code buildings on the property. I get it when you're using a pre-existing non-conforming building on the same footprint or reconstructing on the same footprint. That part I understand, but to have a mix of a pre-existing and a non-pre-existing, I would have to give that a lot more thought, which is the short reason why we are proceeding the way that we are, because it's straightforward. It doesn't require the pretzel.
I can understand where you're coming, because you already have the building, it's cheaper to refit it than to knock it
Not
out.
necessarily.
Well, I don't think you're gonna get 80 units if you knock it all down and start from scratch. You don't have the acreage.
But they're not gonna do it, so.
No, I'm
which
just-
is great. so.
I'm just saying, so
Point.
I think moving forward, you're gonna have to prove to us that you can meet all the design requirements that the board's gonna, in a formal setting, not, you know, informally, you're gonna have to submit drainage, you're gonna have to, you know, engage green and come before us and prove that you can get 80 units, if that's the number that you wanna
Right.
get moving forward.
Agreed.
So, we welcome the fact that you're trying to reuse the building and things like that. Personally, I think it makes more sense to try to reuse what's there than try to knock it down and try to squeeze everything you possibly can there, but you're gonna have to show us how you're gonna get there. And then, like I said, then we put it out and send it out, and you're gonna have constraints about, you know, your percent impervious is my first look. I know it's pre-existing, but once you start touching it, you have to, you know, there's gonna have to be some give and take on that part.
It's going to be more non-conforming when it comes to the amount of impervious material. That's the good thing. We're going to reduce the amount of
I
impervious.
mean, less
material.
non-conforming,
Less non-conforming. What did I say?
more, you said more.
And it's going to be less
We're
non-conforming.
gonna need a flow chart for this.
Yeah, right. See, I'm already in the pretzel.
This is, I mean, it is a potential for a pretzel. And however, I think all of us on this board are interested in activating the site and making it fantastic. So if we had proposals that we could look at and
Yeah.
understand, then, you know, we could have some more
I
comments.
think the fact that you're more realistic about a number out there than the other stuff that we've seen is nice.
Do you want to see something more informal before we submit the engineering, or
No,
just rock and roll?
I think you need to come before us with everything. You need to come before us with.
But I would do, you know, look at the 550 King process where there's a master plan, you know, that doesn't have drainage details, but has building locations and heights and uses and square footages and, you know, it is a process. I certainly wouldn't launch into a full-fledged, you know, detailed
Yeah.
thing. That's all, you know, and in some ways, you have an advantage. You have the existing buildings, which we can understand. We understand them. I don't know how exactly they'll be reused, but, you know, and then this back piece is the big mystery, and what that's gonna be.
Val, are you gonna say something?
Well, I was just going to ask if you have sort of a conceptual idea of how much you'd tear down and how much you'd leave. I mean, there's this building, I mean, these ones along the street you've mentioned. I mean, this sawtooth one in the back I don't think would be amenable to housing or, you know, pretty much any kind of a modern reuse.
I think
So, you know, where would the line be between, you know, what's left and what is going away and going to be made into something else?
The concept right now is that everything stays except the sawtooth building, and that's the building that's hard to reuse. So that would be the portion of the building we would picture rebuilding. So the front, everything you see there along the street,
Yeah.
as well as what's immediately behind it, which is kind of a transition area between the two sections of the building, would be retained, and then the sawtooth portion of the building would be the area that we picture rebuilding.
Lauren, I have a question. What is Util's role in moving forward with anything in the common? Didn't we have some arrangement for them to do like peer review or something?
We can engage them to do peer review of anything, any of the proposals in the area.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I think that would be really helpful when, for any of the proposed projects, that would be helpful. Because they definitely walk this. Util is a group that helped us develop the form-based code, and so they actually walked all of this. And they had visions in their head about what they could see and in part of their recommendations. So I think having them included in any project would be really helpful.
So the question is, what do we want from them next? Do we want something a little more substantial? Are we,
I think conceptual would be good, so that we have a sense of what this 80 units, where you see them going.
Yeah, a schematic of. Sort of
Yeah. We're happy to proceed with that. We just want to sort of make sure we're going in the right path. It's a different path than what we had thought, and we're happy to do it, but.
It's a narrow path, but it's, I mean, I think.
It's your path to take, but, you know, it's better than what we've had so far, so.
We appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you for
all
your
right,
feedback,
so-
and we'll proceed and come back with some.
One final
additional-
comment, which I think won't surprise anybody about, is traffic, right? And so you have various potential points of entry and egress, so if in your, you know, if you can identify what you think you want to do with those, that'd be helpful.
We'll do that, absolutely.
Yeah, up here.
I don't think anyone will much
Yeah,
of it.
that's
There's
been-
no way to
so
get
that-
at it.
that'll help tremendously.
No.
Yeah, but
this is
that's
a hazard.
way on
Yeah.
But they've got this, they've
Oh,
got
this
this,
is
and they've
crazy.
got, I think they can get access to that.
The main access to the property is on Great Road at the moment,
Right,
which
but
gets
I-
you right onto 495, so.
I think you'd be able to,
Here
I think you'd be able to find your way onto White Street if you looked at it.
Okay.
Okay.
It goes for a residential neighborhood, so we weren't sure that would be a.
Right, but I mean, you're gonna just put a driveway, you know,
Yeah,
that
right.
connects to it, so
Yeah.
you could try, I mean,
We do have
it's
that
worth
property that
investigating.
connects us,
Right.
it connects us up onto King Street, so we
Right
do have
across from the
access
post
directly off King
office.
Street,
Okay.
which is nice, so.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of up to you what
See
you want
you
to do
soon,
next.
then.
No, thank you very much, we appreciate your feedback.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Well, they could,
All right, we have a continued public hearing, 7:50, we're in Chester.
you could
A
also
little late.
connect to this. is White
Aquifer
Street.
Water Resource Sidewalk Curb Cut Special Permit, 550 King Street,
This
550
is
King
not
Street
form-based code,
LLC.
this is.
Remember Robinson Road?
Yeah,
Northern Bank was form-based code, but Robinson Road doesn't. So same thing.
okay.
So Lawrence Road is not form-based code?
We'll probably be dead
Well,
by the time
to
any of this is done.
the dentist's office.
Apparently he's
Right,
died.
so 12 is not.
The guy who owns
12 is.
Oh, 12 is?
Yeah.
Oh, he did die?
Okay,
So.
They want
All
to
right,
sell.
oh my God, so these guys are scheduled for
7:50.
7:50.
We're an hour late. What are you, gonna bill us?
Okay,
Oh, okay.
let's go.
All right, thanks.
It's late. I've been working all day.
Oh, please. I don't think that's far enough down.
Mark.
Yes, go ahead. Are you ready? I'll look at it later. Go ahead. A microphone too?
Always.
Wow. It's 5 of us here.
Good evening, Rick Freiberg from TEC, civil engineer for the project. I'll do the abbreviated version. I can tell we're running out of steam. Me too. We're last in front of the board the first 2 weeks of April. We came to kind of consecutive week meetings. We got a lot of feedback from the board, which I think was really good and helped us kind of revise the project. The plan that you see here is the old version. So I just very quickly run through the list of things that we really kind of highlighted and addressed with the next version of the plan, which I'll show you in just a second. So the feedback that we heard, last time we were here was really, I guess, starting along King Street here, that there was too many gaps in the street wall along King Street, and that it really lacked the sort of aesthetic that you were looking for with the form-based code. So that's something I think you'll be pleased when you see the next version of the plan. Also, in buildings H and I, we had these sort of completely enclosed interior parking structures, which I know we're talking a little bit about what's that aesthetic like when you're in the units. So we'll show you what we did for those. We had talked a little bit more about considering adding more units in the village portion of the project. So in the previous version of the plan, there was 60 some odd units above the village here. We've increased the number of units in the front out in that village. We talked about improving and promoting sort of these plaza areas. So areas that are sort of maybe outside of the green space here, but like opportunities to kind of hang out, places to, to be out and about around the development. We walked through the phasing. We talked about doing bike racks and the different transit options that are available. We sort of hypothetically talked about a town hall scenario, which has been some more development kind of at the town level. So we're happy to share, some further conceptual drawings about that. And we talked about, the potential for what would the site look like if we could keep the existing buildings. Obviously, we've heard the prior meetings here tonight, and so we wanted to show you a version of the plan that did that in the event that we're able to attract tenants and reuse those buildings. And one of the last things was really improving the access across the site for pedestrians. I think when we were kind of looking at the plan before, we had this sort of great center of activity, but then it's like, how do you get from here to the various buildings on the site? It sort of lacked that pedestrian connectivity going east to west. And also that the streets were very long. We had a continuous street basically that went from Route 119 all the way to the end of the site, and it's a straight shot. And so the discussion was it was very grid-like and sort of, I think the word was seaporty. And so taking into account all that feedback, we have prepared an updated site concept that looks like this. And so starting sort of where we, in the order that we sort of ran through the comments, you see the street wall here along King Street is much more developed. We took one of the buildings, like we said basically before, and slid it to the front to basically help infill that street wall. We also activated the street. These sort of brown areas here represent pavers for plaza areas or patio areas to support those retail and commercial users on the ground floor. We've also added units above these spaces. So there's now 110 units proposed in the red buildings, where 66 or so were proposed previously. The blue building here is the proposed location if things work out with Town Hall. And what we liked about this concept was it could be, if it was desired to be attached to the Tuttle House or unattached to the Tuttle House, but very proximate to it, it would have its sort of own parking area. And it would also sort of serve to activate the fourth corner of the green. If you look at our previous plan, we really only activated 3 corners of the green, and that Town Hall use would really activate that northwest corner. As relates to street layout, we do have straight streets still, but they're not very long anymore. They used to go all the way across the site. Starting from 119, they went all the way across. What we decided to do to help differentiate the site and kind of break it up a little bit was meander. So if you wanted to get from one side to the other without going to King Street, you can, but it's not a straight shot anymore. Our main circulation pattern is you come in and you go up here, or you come in and you go down here. And also, buildings N and O are keeping the 2 existing IBM buildings. So it sort of shows you how the development program could work with the 2 existing buildings.
Brent, can you hold on a second?
Yeah.
For our audience, I was just going to mention, if you turn around and look at the TV, you can see it.
Oh, great.
Well, it's not on, it's in front of us too.
I just put it up.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
So although the roads are still straight, and like I said, they don't go from one end to the other anymore. The other thing we try to do is interrupt them. So you kind of come in, there's like this like traffic circle to kind of help break things up a little bit, keep things slow. You also have a variety of what we call mixing zones, where you've got a lot of pedestrian activity. These are probably elevated, raised, paver kind of crosswalk areas that are at the major intersections. So again, it really serves to kind of like break up, add more character to the streetscape, and make sure that it doesn't become this sort of like, major vehicular, kind of throughway. We did maintain the boulevard style look, so you've got some landscaping in the middle, which I think is a really nice look. And also we're really excited about some of these retail areas here that are going to be generated. So you've got activation of the four corners of the green. Adjacent to the green, you have this really large plaza, which will serve for hanging out. It could be activated by restaurants from buildings C and D. You've got the possible activities of a town hall here, possible connection if we wanted to with the Tuttle House. And you can see how that sort of engages. We're talking about the restaurants located in these two corners here. So you've got this really great, activation area here. And again, it's immediately proximate to the downtown. It's not tucked up in the back of the site or something like that, where it might have been easier to figure out, but not as impactful, I don't think, in terms of community benefit. So just like before, the major multifamily residential components are back here. You can see now where we have courtyards, they're green courtyards instead of parking. And what we did was we actually got the survey in hand, so we have real elevation grades. What we realized is that there was enough topography to be able to come here, drive down, and enter under a deck that's open to the air on this side at grade, but that you would be able to drive on top of here. And it would be at the first floor of these buildings. So there's no elevated structure from the units from buildings J and K, which is kind of cool. So that's how we're sort of benefiting from the topography there.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? So where it says P1, that's parking there?
Yep, this is parking.
So that's all parking. So you would
Yep.
see, okay, all
Yep,
cars.
so
Okay.
it's two levels. There's the level that you're at when you're at like in the first floor of building J or K, and then there's a level of parking that's actually under it.
Okay.
And you get to that underneath level, by driving up this way and underneath. And so it's a way that we're able to kind of stack the parking and create a parking garage without creating a parking garage, basically.
So there's a P1 underneath?
Yeah, so P1 is just parking structure 1.
Mhm.
So there's exactly right. So there's a deck that's at the level of the units, and then there's a level underneath that you can access from around the side.
But you can't really see it.
You can't see it at all unless you drove out back and around. And the way that the grades work, it's that grade. So it's open to the air on the side and on the back, which is kind of neat. And so when we had that topography in hand, we go, here's where we're going to solve that parking problem that we had. Because it was surprising. We all remember the topography, it steps like this.
Yeah.
I was surprised, though, looking at the survey, how much it also steps this way.
Right, it does. Yeah, it goes down quite a bit.
Yeah, so once we saw that, it was like, that's how we're going to fix this. So buildings N and O, again, so those are proposed to be retained in this concept. Access for those primarily would come from this curb cut here. You'd be able to drive out behind the buildings. Right now, they benefit from both being the same user, right? So the loading is kind of helpful if you're the same user. If they were separate, though, we sort of had to make some accommodations for ways to load these if they weren't communicating well with each other. And so that's what's kind of going on back here. But anybody who's been out back there knows there's a ton of like HVAC equipment. We're proposing just leave all that alone. If we're going to keep the buildings, we'll keep all the mechanicals that go with them as well. Because obviously we've displaced the parking for those buildings as it was, we proposed a garage over here sort of off in the wing that would really support here. This garage here would be proposed to support building N and also buildings M, which is a single loaded corridor. So there's no units that face the garage. You would walk into a hallway basically from the garage, and all the units face this way in this building. So that's why it's so skinny like that. And then building L has a sort of interior courtyard area here. I think that's kind of a quick summary of the major changes since the last time we spoke. We also show, I should say, we talked about, we should probably start showing things happening off the site as well. And although these aren't like final design things, but at this master plan level, we want to get them on the plan so that they're documented, but that we think we can do a really good job proposing some pedestrian crossings to get across King Street. So here we're showing sort of improvements for the intersection of 110 and 119. Possibly, pavered, maybe even paver the whole intersection, just kind of make you feel like you're at the destination somewhere. At a minimum, though, doing pavers for the crosswalks. And then proposing some mid-block crossings. There are some that are out there today, but I think just their visibility could be improved, again, through change of materials, making them wider. Maybe they're 20 feet wide instead of 8 feet wide. Maybe they're elevated if the grading allows for it. Maybe they have the push button, rapid flashing beacons and the like. So we show those in a couple locations, and what we basically say is, strong pedestrian crossings to be coordinated with town staff. We'll sort of work, with you guys to kind of figure out the details of how those get put in place in the right location for it.
So you took out the Shea Street access?
Yeah, we took a closer look, so.
It's pretty tiny.
It's tiny. There's also utility poles that are back there. There's also some type of natural gas device or something back there that looked like a problem to deal with. And then it's also confined, there's an area that appears to be wetlands, which restricts how close you can get to King Street on Shea Street.
There's a pond back there.
There's a pond back there, yeah. So taking into account all of those things, we said maybe not the greatest idea.
Okay.
So this is a scenario that shows the building stay.
This is the scenario with the building stay, yeah.
Ultimately, it might be part of this, part of that.
Correct.
But just so that we see everything, how it can all fit together.
Yeah, and behind the scene, it's funny, the site goes up for sale, there's really no interest in the buildings, but people hear about, this project, they hear how things are progressing, and, suddenly we have a little bit of interest in what we call Building O here. So, we'll see. We don't know, it's not a, we don't have a lease or anything like that, but we're in the hunt, which was, there's seemingly no market a year ago.
And the units in the front, we've always talked about senior age and place kind of stuff, so now you've upped that to about 100?
Yep, so there's 110 in total, above what we call, the village out front here, the red buildings.
But they'll all be rental, right?
That's a proposal, yep, all rental. And as part of this plan, I know there's obviously discussion that happened at the select board, and that's the right place for it, but just kind of briefing everybody so everybody hears how we understand it to be. The concept would be, if it works out between the select board and the developer to locate town hall here, that this building would be developed for deeply discounted senior housing here, and the developer would build that.
Approximately up to 40?
We think, we gotta get a hold of floor plans and design them up. We think about 40 units or so, plus or minus, and that those would be deeply discounted, senior only, and listening to other meetings, we'll work with you to find out the best way to actually be able to do that, the way that you guys want to.
So we have to talk about if that's coming down, whether the town through the Affordable Housing Trust wants it. I know you've talked about donating to a nonprofit and have them take it over and run it for the town, so.
What we like about that is it helps avoid some of the DHCD issues that you're hearing about in other projects. So if we construct it, we occupy it, get it stabilized, turn it over to a 501c3 who specializes in this stuff, that might be a way to get not only like Littleton preference, but also some of the things that were really important that seem to be stumbling blocks on other projects out of the way. So we're all ideas though, so that's like, very clearly that's what we're trying to do. And if anybody has ideas of ways to do that, we're all ears.
Well, I like this much better.
I think the residential it's just better. I mean, it's not as composed as the other one, but I think in real life, you're gonna have this big boulevard, the parking's gonna be, apart, you have. Anyway.
Courtyards,
I think that the area to the left of the new town common or whatever, CDIE, that looks nice. And then along King Street, it's better. We still have parking, but, and God, I hope that we can save that building.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, don't you think that'd be an advantage to you financially?
Oh, for them, I think it'd be.
It'd be tremendous. Yeah, it'd be tremendous. We had, we were here last summer, it wasn't that long ago, less than a year ago, telling you there was probably no hope. But if anybody could figure out a way, it would be this developer. He's done a lot of mill building reuse, and we weren't optimistic then. But a lot's happened. We've rezoned the parcel, the sewer's coming, there's a lot of progress on the site, and that has people's attention. People aren't interested when things sound like they're a long way away. Things seem like they're on the move here, and there's some momentum that's with that. So
we're a lot closer than we were a year ago.
Yeah, and we had, and so because that's getting some buzz and it's getting some interest, and there was no interest a year ago, and now there is a little bit. So we'll see if we can pull it off.
Cool.
Andy, do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out where the Tuttle House is on there.
Oh, I'm sorry, building A.
A, okay.
Yep.
Oh, it's really small.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, the Tuttle House, it's two stories, it's like
Yeah, what
30,000.
is the town hall telling you about the square footage that they need, you know, because
We're hearing.
I'm wondering.
Yeah, we're hearing 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
What is this? The town hall now?
Yeah,
And it's, however, this is laid out for a school. So I think, a building that's designed to be a municipal building is probably.
Extremely inefficient.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And plus the Tuttle House is another, what, 4,000?
Yeah, 3,500, say, yeah, in the Tuttle House, yeah. And so there's that option. We're showing one here even, linking them so that you can use elevators and stuff in the new building.
To access.
Make sure, and get access to the Tuttle House that way. So, to be some ADA improvements that are, difficult in old buildings to do.
I mean, I think in general, the plaza that you've done around C is probably way too big, but, that's
We're
a
excited.
detail. That's a detail.
We're excited. It could be a little bit of green
the
space.
Boston City Hall Plaza.
Yeah.
We'll have a bandstand and we'll have concerts on the common.
Yeah, with 495 roaring in the background.
We picture
the buildings are blocked.
We picture, catenary lights, so trying to activate it with these different, users. So
That's fun.
catenary lights with outdoor patios from these maybe. Maybe this one's more of it's smaller, so maybe it's more of like a seasonal hot chocolate and a chocolate chip cookie in the winter.
Okay, so you want us to live now in a Hallmark movie?
Yeah. Would it be so bad? It looks nice.
So, Jack, once you're sitting there having your hot chocolate.
You'll be riding your bike. No, you'll be taking your little car because you don't
Walk my
walk.
dog over there and, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I bike racks at every building. We also, I skipped over this, but we included a bump out that we had talked about a little bit for different transit options. So we're showing a location for an on-site bus stop, but also that could be ride share, it could be Cross Connect.
Cross Connect,
Cross
yes.
Connect, yeah. I was going to glance down to the last
Kind
name
of
for a
critical
sec.
to this
Yeah.
because
Yeah, and so, making that connection to the train station is important, I know, for the town and for people that live here, so.
Well, another point about transportation is, have you thought about charging stations anywhere? On the site?
We'll definitely have EV charging stations. They'll more than likely end up in the garages, just kind of how they usually go, it seems that way.
Actually, you want to think about putting them in the parking lot.
Yeah, you're gonna need some in the
Because,
retail.
because
For visitors for
it
the
usually
retail.
takes an hour to fully charge a car, and so.
Gotta get something to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you definitely want to put some in the
Well,
parking
you may
lots there
even get,
near
if you have
retail.
supercharging stations, you may even get people pulling off 495 and going to a
Yes.
restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
As
That's
a
right.
driver of an
That's-
EV.
You're always looking
we
for
have it
'em.
all mapped out.
Yeah.
We know
Yep.
exactly where to stop on our way to New York City, and we get our food, and then
Yeah.
we come back
So
and our cars
def-
charged.
yeah.
So aside from this master plan process, we obviously have DOT permitting to do and MEPA permitting to do. They are going to absolutely require that of us, so EV's coming, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, I'm just going to get up
Yeah.
and point to it. So this right here is the crossing that you're speaking about, would be the primary crossing,
So-
and then on to the sidewalk and over?
Yeah, so I highlighted the entire intersection. So here's, so this is 119, the stop bar for that is here. And then you've got these sort of like skewed crossings that go across, but, people, you guys know, it's difficult to get across there.
Yeah, those crossings aren't used very much.
Yeah.
But maybe if it was,
Because
that
there's
would
no
change.
place to go.
Yeah, you go to you're going to the gas station.
Right. So the idea here is, and the reason I highlighted the whole thing was, what if we could really raise the profile? When I say that, I mean not necessarily topography, but raise the awareness that you're at a place, you're at a destination here. There's a change in materials. It looks like you're in a village center. More than just like a Mass DOT traffic light. Next to a gas station. So
Plus, you're gonna want it the other way too. You're gonna want people to park there and be able to go back
And that-
to the common, which they really can't do because there's no parking.
That's right. And so we're showing that sort of more exaggerated thing going on here. And then we're also showing, these are really wide. They don't look at the scale because the site's so big, but these are like 20 feet wide, which is like, 2.5 times the width of a normal crosswalk with pavers. And then we're showing another one down here, but the truth is,
There's no, yeah, sorry.
Turn it off.
That's, down there, I mean, we could get input from the residents down there, but there's just a few little dead-end residential streets.
there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not a lot to connect to. But our thought was, okay, if you have these crossings and they're changing materials because they're pavers or whatever, it just feels
Oh,
more
yeah.
like a downtown village, you know, than it does if it's just sort of throughway.
Anything you can recommend, we
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
And
And
I
so,
think for something like that, you can look back to the revitalization roadmap, and they have
Yeah.
crossings up and down King Street
Yep.
and Great Road.
and these can be, you know, you can come, you know, pair these with those rapid flashing beacons if you want to, so people get the yellow lights, you know, flashing in their faces, like, hey, there's people trying to cross
Like we
here.
have at Kimball's.
Yeah.
You have them right down the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
street, yeah.
Yeah.
Bartlett, do you have questions or concerns?
No, I think this is improved greatly.
Yeah, it's better than how we started.
I like the parking garage. I think that's brilliant. That's,
That is
they're not
good.
even gonna know it's there.
No, it's hidden.
Well, and I like it that it's on 495.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe we're gonna see it. Yeah.
So what are the next steps?
Well, before we get to the next steps, I have a couple of questions of them. Okay, so I know you've met with the selectmen. I know you've talked about moving town hall here. That's why it's on the plan, and the Tuttle House. Just to be clear, because we need to talk about it to bring it to them. The idea is to donate that pad for B to
Fee
the
simple.
town.
Yep. Yep.
You're gonna build it out,
Build it out,
donate it to the town.
so the town will own the
We're gonna
land.
take this parcel, build deeply discounted senior housing over there, 40 hopefully units, sooner rather than later. One of the issues that we talked about was phasing, just because I know Anna's big on phasing, that while we're in the middle of building this, that maybe you would give us some senior discounted housing and the regular stuff, if that comes before this parcel is built. And a couple of units anyway, just to, just
So it'd be deeply discounted senior housing in one of these buildings?
just temporarily until this came online, just so that we have some.
I see.
I could make you look, well, not that you don't look bad, you look great. Just to kind of.
But then what would
At least maybe
happen? How do you
10
do that
So then
temporarily?
it's rental, as people move out, it goes back to.
Oh,
So
I'm just
this
saying,
wouldn't
we
be,
have some.
so this wouldn't be like a deed restriction kind of
No,
situation?
no these
on
restriction
these?
at all, just so that the seniors can get something a little sooner than, she's making daggers at me, I have to do something.
Is there a way that we could do it, like, you know, through the phasing, that, like, you
Yeah,
won't let us
absolutely.
go past a certain point until we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that might be
Or
kind
maybe
of
you put some of them in the front part, make
Yeah.
them discounted until, like, maybe if you build the first 100, we get 2 of them, or 3 of them, or something like that.
Okay.
I just want to throw it out there so that we're not leaving the seniors behind, you know?
No.
We're all
we're
sen-
gonna end up so much senior housing, it'll be
know.
awesome,
I
and
know.
then we'll all die.
We'll all be seniors by then.
We already
Yeah.
are, we already are.
So.
Every single one of us here.
The other thing is, we have to work this back into the new DHCD, MBTA commuter
Well, yeah,
requirements.
the reason we want to do the Crosstown Connect is so that some of these units are going to count towards what we're trying to do over at the MBTA station.
I mean, hopefully, a lot
Most
of
of
them.
them, yeah.
Well, we have to do it acreage, right?
Final
I mean, we have to
guidance-
figure
final
that
guidance will be
out.
sometime
Because we're
by the
counting
fall.
on this
to carry some of the load.
to carry some
Do you
of
want
it.
to talk density now about what you're giving us and what we're giving you in return?
Yeah, there's more units on this plan than we had before.
So I'm gonna
I'm
put
looking
my-
at the numbers here
Yeah,
now.
yeah, so it was 656 on this plan, and it's 780 on this plan, which places us right at the upper end of the 20 unit per acre density. You know, I think the site's about 40 acres, so say 800 is probably the cap, and this proposes 780.
And that gives
And
us
that- yeah, that's-
town hall and the senior housing here
That's right.
for nothing.
That's right. Yeah, so the way that we're able to make that pro forma work, it took the extra 100 and change units to pay for the town hall and to construct the senior housing here that's deeply discounted.
So are we gonna see, I mean, I think people would be, because this is unknown to Littleton, not so much the front.
Mhm.
We can sort of, I think we can all understand what that hopefully will look like. But the back, with the 6-story buildings, et cetera, are we gonna see some images of those?
Yeah, yep, so we, and not that these are perfect representations, but, so we worked with, you want to bring it a little closer?
Yeah, we saw that before.
You saw these before?
Yeah.
Yep, and it's the same concept.
And
so-
I guess I'm more
Yeah.
looking, if you're standing at the plaza and you're
Mhm.
looking down the boulevard.
Yeah.
I think we should see that.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're standing here and looking
Yeah.
either back this
No,
way or looking up.
Isn't
looking
that
up
the
there.
next
Because
stage?
that's a 6-story,
On both sides.
both sides.
But do we have architectural drawings yet?
No, but
for
these
that?
aren't,
Yeah, so
they could do
that's our-
something.
All right, so we've.
If they can do this, they could do a.
Well, is that a 6-story building right there?
No.
No.
That's 5.
That's 5, yeah.
So I think,
So
let's see it.
These are, what's yellow is 6-story buildings?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And that's how we had to do it. Obviously, these take up a tremendous part of the site to try to kind of keep those and rework the plan. So these had to go up to 6 instead. I think before we had some 5s that were mixed in there, but that's just kind of how it had to work to keep these.
So with the added number of housing units in here, where did most of them go? Into the front form-based code area?
So yeah, so we added about, what is that, about 125 units, say? About
60 of
50,
them.
yeah, 50 or 60 got added out front, and then the other 60 or so got added out back.
So what's the height then? Is it changed on the front?
These are all 3-story buildings, except for Q, which I believe is a 2-story building.
Okay, all right, so that didn't change.
Yeah, there's Q is kind of it's kind of cool. It's a sort of transition area between this and this, but it's 2 stories. We're only talking about, I think there's 8 units on the 2nd floor, but retail below. So it'll have a different feel, obviously. What we want to do is on the site, aside from the different buckets of housing that we're trying to satisfy, is also provide a different, classifications of units. So these are much smaller, like these are ballpark, like 20 units a building, plus or minus. It's a very different experience where you've got 10 people on your floor than 70 people on your floor or something like that. So we're trying to kind of create these sort of differentiated housing products on the site.
Okay.
So what are the next steps then?
That was my next thing. Okay, so you're here, we're in the master plan. Do we finish with this, tell them we like what they've shown us, and have them move on to the definitive? I think
Yeah.
we're ready. I don't see.
I mean, you have to show us next how you're parceling the site.
Yeah, you have to do all the dirty
And
work.
the
Yeah.
characteristics of each parcel and the timing and,
Your traffic study, your drainage, all of that stuff is coming up. So I think we have to give them direction that we like.
Yeah, I think it's much better.
But there's still some unknowns. I mean, you don't know if you can save, or you
Right.
N and O, or one of them, or half of one, or, I mean, there's still some unknowns here.
That's right. So
Yeah, but whether you save one or you have to rebuild it, I mean, it's still.
But it's
Right.
still in that area.
Right,
so
All right, there's going to be something.
right.
yeah, what we're trying to achieve, because it's a good point, but so what we're trying to achieve with this plan was maximum residential density and keep the buildings. And so what does
Yeah.
that allow us to do? Because the way we kind of talked about this master plan process is working, it's like, we're gonna have a chart of approved uses, units, square footages, that kind of stuff, that we'll draw against as we go sort of phase by phase. So if the board voted in favor of the number of units that are on this plan, which is 780, we've shown that we can do it in a configuration that keeps the 2 buildings. If we can't keep a building for some reason, we still can't build more than 780 units. So probably what happens, these become 4- and 5-story buildings instead of 6, and one building comes down.
So we're trading additional housing density for a new town hall.
And deeply
Yeah.
affordable housing here.
Okay, I mean, we just need to be really explicit.
Well, that's what
about
we
that.
want to get
Yeah.
it out so that we send it to the select.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the ones who are gonna ultimately figure out how to make this work, because we can't do that, but we have to know what we're looking at.
And the big question that town voters will have is, how many bedrooms, how many, that type of thing.
Yeah, and those are gonna be things that are kind of addressed phase by, so like I said, so the process that we kind of had outlined was, there was a sort of master plan, eventually we arrive at a point where the planning board makes a decision on that, and there's a total number of approved uses, units, square footages, et cetera. Each phase, we come back before you to do a site plan review. At that time, we have the exact architecture of the building, the exact unit count, with the floor plans that show how many bedrooms are in each building, all that. And we kind of go through on a phase-by-phase basis and you know, this is probably a 5 to 10 year build, you know, you're probably not
Sure.
gonna wanna see us by the end of it, but.
Well, then we better get started.
Yes.
The other thing is.
We'll be moving into
They may
Sidewalk
not-
Street.
Even though it's out of our control.
Because I don't want to live in this one. I want to live over
Hopefully,
there.
So-
hopefully in the future, our meetings are.
Sewer. They may not have enough sewer to build everything here. We don't know that.
Okay.
Not until we get
Yeah.
going on that. I just want to get past the
So
conceptual.
let's get to the next
All right, you,
phase, yeah.
Jesus.
It's getting hot in here, too.
So for us, that, like that next phase is basically getting to a planning board decision on the master plan only.
Yeah,
And
so
with-
we
And there
need
could
to
be a voluminous list of conditions, like, hey, you gotta come back, you know, we gotta detail this, like site-specific lighting, landscaping, twin parking spaces, building architecture.
Have you looked at the document that was done for the,
Point.
not the point, the one for the
Littleton
train
Station.
station, Littleton Station? There is a document that was done by a planner or an architect that you might draw from.
Yeah.
That dealt with, not so much numbers or anything like that, it was a different project, but dealt with, you know, site things and lighting and.
We borrowed an awful lot from that. to
Okay,
this,
good.
yeah.
Okay. Because we probably need, in addition to this, we need that.
Yeah.
you know,
So then why don't you start the conditions of approval for the master plan? Get it back to us so we can get it to town council so that at our next meeting, we can approve it and send you.
Send us off for the details.
Now, the other thing is you might want to think about, building O may be the first building, might be phase one, right?
Could be phase 1, could be phase 8. You know, so with
You
these
have to
guys.
build a parking garage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's strategically, so we're trying to think, okay, if building O were to happen, we have sufficient on-street parking right now to kind of accommodate that until we get to the part we want to build, before we build the village, got to build the garage. But we can do it offline, which is nice here. You know, it took some back and forth with the architect and, okay, well, what if this happens first? What if that happens first? And because, like we had talked about before with the commercial buildings on this plan, the market and the tenants kind of decides when those plug into the phasing. And what we had talked about was for the stuff that we have much more control over, that we'll kind of do this seesaw thing so that, you know, we don't build all this before you get some of this. We kind of go back and forth, back and forth. But these sort of insert themselves when the iron's hot, we get a strike. Yep.
Okay.
So you're gonna send
Excuse myself for a minute. Go ahead.
Like
Go
a
ahead.
draft.
a draft, and also a
decision.
draft to the select board, I believe, about how to, because this obviously is critical upon B going over there, the distribution of town getting the title house and of this. So if you could start sending over, I know you've been in discussion, I know you've looked.
Yeah, like we would call that like a development agreement sort of thing.
Right, it's gonna be a host community agreement
Yep.
that we'll eventually do, but I wanna run it in parallel to this so that when we start voting it, we're gonna know, you know, the select board's gonna have to weigh in and decide, yes, we're doing this. Because that, to us, it's critical. For you to get the density that you're asking for, that component is critical. And the senior part, sooner rather than, well, obviously, they can't do anything here till they vacate, so.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get you a couple of units, don't worry. Maybe-
This first, then this, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, we have to, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So we want to put you on for next month. What time?
Okay, so we're doing the 7:15, so 7:45 for this one? So 242 King Street.
Do you have
is
any
at
questions or
7:15.
concerns while you're here? You've spent all night here quietly.
I miss the board so much, I just want to spend some time.
Okay. Well, thank you. And sorry about the other thing, you know what I mean. But yeah, anything else before we?
So, do we have this online yet?
I just sent, this is like hot off the
It's
press, so
not
I just
posted
sent it tomorrow. Oh, you already posted?
No, not
Oh,
yet.
Okay, I was like, wow, that's fast, yeah. Okay,
Okay,
yeah, we just sent this over like this afternoon, so it'll probably be posted soon.
All right, so if we have any comments, because we haven't had a chance to look at it in more
Mhm.
detail, can we just send them through to Maureen?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, happy, yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, it might, you know, it might be things that we address like as we go through the phasing, you know, if we see something, unless you see something huge, you're like, whoa, you totally missed this one thing.
Can I ask, when you send the, you know, can we just get a specific document with the table?
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
opposed to looking at a tiny little numbers on the plan?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, keep the table on there, but then give us
But then
an
just like a
additional
whole
one.
sheet.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we brought that, I think, to the last meeting, was just like a whole board of just like
Yeah.
the development table, yeah.
I think ultimately what I like about it is that over here, the green space was kind of around it. This
Mhm.
one, you can actually kind of feel that there's green space throughout the entire village. So
Yeah,
that-
I skipped.
That feels good.
I was so excited, I skipped right over it, but again, like, setting up these sort of like corridors. So you got pedestrian corridor along King, you've got pedestrian corridor along the back of these buildings, you've got pedestrian corridor along the top, you've got pedestrian corridor along it, and then same thing going north and south. It's much more connected.
Does it drive you crazy that N and O are slightly off?
I know, yeah, I can't handle it. Not only they're like offset, engineer tendencies, but they're like slightly skewed too.
Slightly.
Yeah, it's very.
Oh, that'll be a happy accident.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
Character.
Great, you've done everything I think we've asked of you.
Except for the curved street.
Well, that's as
I tried,
curved
I know,
as
I
you're gonna
tried.
get.
But there is, I'll say, especially because, in this
There's a lot
plan.
less of the street than there was before.
Yeah, it was a straight shot before, all the
Yeah.
way beginning to end, all the way to Shea Street, and then, so we've tried to break, and then the other thing we try to do is break it up. We've got these really like arrival points where you're gonna have pedestrians and people crossing, and so it should have more of the character like you see on these graphics, where it's gonna feel, you're not gonna feel like you're on that through street that goes all the way. And also, because we're trying to keep the buildings, a lot of the topography stays too. So it's not,
Well, keeping the topography.
you're not
is
in
great,
Texas,
yeah.
Where are we at with the state and the money for the sewer and the fixing of the streets and everything? Can you speak at all to that?
Yeah, we're in the application process. So we're working on preparing the one-stop grant application with the state. The state put forth legislation.
Go ahead.
Good night, Ed.
Good night.
The state put forth legislation that basically essentially earmarks money for this project in the forward bill that Governor Baker put out a couple weeks ago. So assuming that clears with no issues, there's earmarked money for this project. Basically, we have to put together a good competitive application, and we're going to get it.
Do you have any idea how much it is, or you can't share it? I'm throwing these at you if you have an answer.
Infrastructure money or?
Public infrastructure, yep. So the way MassWorks works, so MassWorks is one of the grants that you apply for through the One Stop, and it's to build public infrastructure that supports a private development project. So it's like a public-private partnership sort of thing. So we say, well, geez, we can't really build this project unless we fix up the lights, unless we do some streetscape, unless we add in these crossings, unless we extend the sewer.
Build the town hall?
We can't do it, we tried. We can't do that. And even utility connections and things like that, upgrading utilities is all included in that too.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Does
So
it
it's-
include anything with the bridge too, or is that still to be determined?
The bridge is not coming,
No.
my understanding.
Well, not another bridge.
I'm not the
repair-
decider, but.
Repair of the bridge that we
You
have.
probably know I'm not the
Could
decider,
we
but
just widen it
Yeah,
so people could walk?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
We
I don't
can
think-
still fight
the
that.
The state's been very generous, but we're not getting the bridge on.
You gonna give us a number, or we gotta guess?
The
You
legis-
can't.
It's in the legislature.
Right, the proposed legislation is
$11 million.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 million. So if you remember a year ago, we were hopeful about 6. The state really likes this project.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, and we're in a sweet spot with pandemic money, so.
Yes.
Let's ride the wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to.
All right.
Make some hay.
No, 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 I mean, like, I want, like, start the project,
I'm
you
trying
know?
to close it for next
No, I didn't mean the
meeting.
meeting. I meant.
No, I mean, I try to get it done tomorrow, next week, so they know they have their marching orders, and then they come when they wanna start building stuff, okay? Jesus.
And so just for me, when we're voting, this plan may change in big ways or small ways or
Will
whatever.
change, yeah.
But we're committing to you that we would allow so many units. But I do think we do need more information about the units, the size, the bedrooms, all that stuff.
The AMI.
Yep. Yeah, so that's, I'm glad you said that. So, because we didn't talk about, so we talked about 40 or so, whatever we could do here. That doesn't get us to 10% though. So the balance of the 10% would be workforce housing type product on site. And so for that, we need to provide some information about AMI and the like.
Yeah.
And the 40 would be added to the 7 whatever.
That's inclusive. It's included in there.
The
That
10%
includes
would
it.
be in that
Yep. So
combined number.
the 40, well, I should say, the 40 here
And
physically here.
we're saying 40, but maybe it's more, maybe it's less.
Maybe, yeah. That is not included, the ones in this building are not included in the 780.
No, I know.
But the balance.
But the 10% is
Yep.
40 plus 780.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And you know there are new HUD.
Yeah. People are making some money.
And as far as the stuff in the
Well,
front,
yeah.
even though she's already gone,
I'd sponsored
we're looking at,
2,500 for a 2-bedroom, that's crazy.
And that's 80%, right? Yeah.
so senior housing in the age and place, not deeply discounted, market rate, maybe a little bit affordability, but market rate out
Yep.
there.
Yeah, we had
But
talked
with all
about.
the amenities, we, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
we
So,
associate.
Maren, in terms of the subsidized housing and, inventory, if they're rental, this isn't a 40B, so how is that included in our?
It will just be strictly by the number of units. Number
Not the
of
total
affordable.
number of units like in a 40B, but just the number of units
Because they're
that are.
not gonna, unless they hit the 25% of the units are at 80% or lower.
Okay.
And deed restricted.
You're shaking your head.
We need to pay for a town hall.
Well, no, I'm just saying that we'll need the 10%
Yes.
just because
We'll need the
we're
10%.
increasing.
We-
Absolutely.
We won't get the 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You laugh, though. What 80% is these days,
It's a
maybe
lot.
what your market rate
It
is.
is an awful lot.
Ultimately is, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You won't know.
Yeah, it's
And
more than my
besides,
mortgage.
you're gonna have to market it so that people are gonna wanna live there. They're not gonna, if you're too far up, people aren't gonna, as nice as it is.
And it negates part of what we've been saying about keeping people in Littleton.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Great, I think you did a great job with the second rendition, just to kind of hear what we had to say and just to put in there, as I suggested, so that we can see if in fact the building stayed, this is what the scenario looks like, and I think we all really like that. It's just gonna be trying to find somebody who might want one of the buildings.
Gotta find the right tenant.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think we did
Yeah,
good, so we're
I
gonna
mean,
continue you till,
7:45 PM on Thursday, June 2nd.
and if you could go back and forth about what we're gonna sign.
Conditions.
Yeah, so there's no surprise, like you did in there, you've been really good about that stuff, so just back and forth with Myron and town council, and I think we'll be good.
Okay, well, and then just so you know, the grant application is due the next day.
Really?
For the deadline.
Yeah, June
so-
3rd, yeah.
Oh, cool.
But we probably, hopefully, should be submitted before that.
Grant application for,
The one-stop community grants that we
11
have to go
million.
through the process to
Yeah,
access.
even though the funds are earmarked, we still have to go through the grant process to secure it.
is there a reason we need to meet sooner than June 2nd then? Okay.
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
Good
Besides,
question.
it's still only like 2.5 weeks away, so,
Yep.
yeah, so you could.
We've already got our work cut out. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry it was so late.
No, please.
I move we close
I-
the hearing? No.
Second,
Whatever,
yeah,
I
hold-
second
Close the
it.
hearing.
No.
You're
Close
just gonna be
the-
getting
The meeting.
we just
We have to
extended
continue the
meeting.
hearing.
Continue the hearing till June 2nd at 7:45.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting, so we
Okay.
can all go home.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Guys, did a great job, thank you all. Thank you.